What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Daggers. We're taking a deep dive into UFC 275, and we have an absolute banger of a main event. We have Jiri going against Old Man Glover, and yeah, can't wait for the card. Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to it?
Yeah, this is such a good card. Two title fights. Got the rematch of Joanna versus Zhang. That's going to be a banger. And then some interesting fights up and down the card. Other than that, some good spots to make some money. Really looking forward to this card. Last week's card was solid. It was okay, but now we got a pay-per-view. And then the next couple of weeks after this, we've got a couple of really stacked top to bottom cards. So I'm fired up. I'm ready to roll here.
For sure. Like I was telling you earlier, like this, the prelims are a little bit iffy from a name value standpoint. There's some fights I'm excited for, some fights I'm not excited for. The main card, I think, more than definitely makes up for it. Great main event, great co-main event. Like you said, Joanna, Weili, that should be fun as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it for sure. I think there's a lot of great spots on the card as well. Cannot wait to break it down. Before we get started, as always, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time to give a deep dive on the upcoming card. And as always, we'll recap last night's event. Weezy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. It was a mixed bag for me. I started off my night with a max bet on Rinat Fakhretdinov, Andreas Mihalidis fight not going to decision. So I started off just in a gigantic hole. I got it at minus 115. And what I did not do, Brady, was hedge out or arb out for a guaranteed profit, which would have been easy for me to do. Got a little bit greedy. And it cost me. And, and like you said earlier, when you wrote that article during the month off, Brady, it's we don't lose, we learn. And then I got a chance to learn from when you beat line movement, when you get in at minus 115 and you have a chance to get out at plus 160. It's something you should do or at least limit your loss. I did not do that. But the rest of the bets worked out pretty good. I had the Lucas Almeida finish only prop at plus 140. I had the Karina Silva fight not going the distance at plus 130. And I had another plus money gem. Oh, yeah. Plus 100, the ass shaving of the week, Alonzo Menafield beats Trash Car Mozarov in the very first round via ground and pound. Awesome. Really starched that fraud. That was pretty sweet. And then the greasy four-legger that I gave out on Just the Tip, Brady, at plus 942 hits. Evloev by decision. Main event fight doesn't go to decision. Karina Silva Botelho fight doesn't go to decision. And Menafield inside the distance. They all made it look easy. Cash that plus 942 parlay. So I was down 1.95 units tracked on the night, but was up over 4 units from hitting that greasy 4-leg parlay, which I never track. I don't track 4-leg parlays, but 11 of the last 12 legs of the greasy 4-leg parlay that I've given out on Just the Tip over the last 3 shows have hit. The only one that didn't hit was Holly Holm, which could have hit because it was such a close fight. So I've been on fire lately with the greasy 4-legger, so I hope to keep that going this week. But, to be honest, Brady, still 2 weeks in a row with losing tracked bets. So that's got to stop. Got to get back in the winning column for this week. And it starts with doing our research early in the week here on Stat Diggers. So I'm ready to go, man. But I know that you had a great week last week.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those weeks where sometimes you start out bad, and I started out really bad. I had 3 bets on the prelims. I went 1 and 2. I was also on the fight doesn't go in the Michaelis Fakhretdinov, and I also had a quarter unit sprinkle on the Munoz inside the distance. He got finished early. Yeah, but on the main card, I went like 7 and 2 on bets. I guess my night really came down to Alonzo Menafield finishing that bum. I had Alonzo Menafield minus 151. I had the under 1.5 minus 165. And then I had the fight won't start round 3 at minus 220. So it was like make or break by night. Either a Menafield finishes this bum early on or I have a losing night. So that happened. And then I also had plus money shots on Osborne, Zaruk under 2.5. I bet that on the week off. And then I also bet the Botelho Silva fight doesn't go plus 130. I actually bet it on the show last week. And then Menafield was the other bet I bet actually on the show. And then the other loss on the main card was the Rosenstruck scorecards equals no action. So it would have been like a 5-unit night had Rosenstruck knocked out Volkov, but ended up being plus 3.2 units. Not a bad night, and definitely looking forward to carrying it over into this week. I did have a parlay with Damon Jackson, parlay with something else on this card. And then we also, me and you, we got in on a spot like a month ago that I'm finally looking forward to hopefully cashing as well. Can't wait to talk about that fight. So yeah, it should be a good card. Lots of good spots and definitely looking forward to getting into it. Let us shout out the chat before we get started. Weezy, we have the chat is going nuts. I got to scroll all the way up. And I really do appreciate, like, you guys have been in there early, like Brandon coming in early at 5:26 saying best Sunday podcast. Appreciate that a ton. Thomas Howard in the chat. What is up, Thomas? He's liking the no distance in the Glover, as is he's liking Fialo as well. We got Victor hanging out. We got Mark in the chat as well. We got Lou Sasshole hanging out. We got Prince of Mischief, Sloppy Seconds, Kung Dao Chicken, HD_tube, F Carrillo hanging out as always. Will you marry me? One sock left. I love it. Awesome. Oh, Lorenzo. We got Mushroom, PSSA, Nigel Lee, and the list goes on and on. I'll try to get as many people as possible. MMA fan, the Stingham, Scorp, Andreas. I think I got Masasio, Krukul. Hopefully I'm pronouncing these somewhat right. Sloppy Seconds, Chalk Dog. All you guys, thank you for hanging out. And we do have a dono. We got F. Carrillo saying deposits for this week's ass shaving and Brady's supplements. I like it, F. Carrillo. Hopefully there is going to be some ashes being shaved like there was last week with Mazarov getting his ass cleanly shaved there. But Weezy, we have 12 fights. I say we get right into it. And let's start with Joslyn Edwards going against Ramona Pascual. We have Ramona Pascual, who is 33 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach. Joslyn Edwards, she is 26 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. I want to double check. So this fight's at 145 pounds. So Joslyn Edwards, I believe, is coming up a weight class for this, which it doesn't really make much sense, really on both parts, because Joslyn Edwards, she's a 135er, and then Ramona Pascual, she's probably a 135er. I guess she's going to be the thicker fighter here, but yeah, I just don't really get that. But regardless, we have Pascual, who is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She came in on short notice against Josiane Nunez, and honestly, I thought she did a lot better than I expected and most people expected. I think a lot of people, including me, expected Josiane Nunez to go in there and knock her out in the very first round, but she actually showed a lot of toughness. She was able to take down Josiane Nunez 3 times as well. So, she looked better than I thought, because you go back and watch some of her fights outside the UFC, and there's just really not a lot. A lot of her fights that you can watch are from a long time ago, and she does not look good. But she came in, and I thought she made somewhat of a decent account of herself compared to what I was expecting. Joslyn Edwards, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Yanan Wu, won that by decision. She lost the decision to Carol Hoza, and then she lost the decision to Jessica Rose Clark. So this is a fight. This is probably even a 1-800 gambler fight, but, we'll talk about the line in a little bit, but the line just does not make much sense to me, because Joslyn Edwards, what has she struggled with throughout her career? And she struggled with her takedown defense, her get-up game. On paper, a 47% takedown defense. Carol Hoza was able to take her down 4 times. She controlled her for 11 minutes. Rose Clark took her down 5 times, was able to control her for 11 minutes. And then even Wu Yanan took her down and controlled her for a little bit of that first round as well. So that's her weakness, her takedown defense, her get-up game. And what does Ramona Pascual do? Well, she's going to go for takedowns, and she probably gets them here, and I think she has a good chance of winning this fight. But, I have question marks still about Ramona Pascual. I have question marks about her gas tank. I have question marks about what happens when the fight gets extended. Just a really weird fight that I'd be shocked if I had any money on this fight at all. But if I did, it's probably on the dog. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting fight. This is something I would normally stay away from, but there's things to like about both fighters, and we could start with Edwards in the tail of the tape. 7 years younger, an inch taller, and a 4-inch reach advantage. And Jocelyn's been training over at King's MMA, so she's got a pretty good camp, while Pascual has recently moved from Hong Kong to Vegas to train over at Syndicate MMA. So Edwards is going to be the bigger fighter, the younger fighter, the longer fighter, the more experienced fighter, and the more experienced UFC fighter. 5 more professional fights, about 50 more minutes of cage time, about a year more as a pro fighter for Edwards. 2 more UFC level fights, 30 more minutes in the UFC cage. And then Joslyn Edwards is going to be the better striker as well here, Brady. She's a Muay Thai striker, really good straight punches, kicks, good heavy hands. She's a good striker. The problem with Jocelyn is that she'll look for arm bars off her back, but it's really not her game. I mean, she could submit some of these cashiers on the regional scene, but when you get up to the UFC level, you're not just going to, snatch up somebody in an arm bar and they're just going to quit and tap immediately. So, Edwards has had a hard time keeping fights on the feet. If you look at the 45 minutes of cage time that she's had in the UFC, she's been controlled about 27 minutes of that 45 minutes that she's been in the cage. That is entirely too much. Entirely too much. So Ramona, her game plan is going to be to get some takedowns here and to get some time on top, work some ground and pound, win the minutes down there, because her striking on the feet is okay. I'm speaking of Pascual here, but once again, it's the soccer moms and the cashiers that she's beaten up. I mean, I don't know what she's going to do at this level, especially somebody with a good Muay Thai background like Jocelyn Edwards, who is long, who is tall, and who's got some power in her hands. So it's an interesting matchup. The things that I like about Edwards here, the size, the experience advantage, the UFC experience advantage, the fact that she's a equal opportunity finisher. 8 out of her 10 wins are inside the distance for Jocelyn Edwards, 5 of them by knockout, 3 of them by submission. And she's only been finished in 1 of her 4 losses. So she's also very durable. The striking should be better for Edwards here, especially at distance. And the takedown defense is not good, but she will threaten arm bars off her back, and she does have a couple of wins by arm bars. So, I think if you're willing to say that the experience, the size, the youth all mean something here, then this should be Jocelyn Edwards. I don't know why this fight is happening at 145. That doesn't make a lick of sense. Why would Jocelyn Edwards take this fight at 145? It's almost as if the UFC is contractually obligated to make some of these fights 145. Like they have to have a certain amount of 145-pound fights, because it always seems to be these 145-pound fights are just 135ers who move up for no particular reason at all. So I don't know why that's happening. That makes it kind of odd. It throws a little bit of extra, I'm not sure in there about how Edwards is going to look at 145, because she looks good at 135. She looks trim and muscular and tall there. She looks big at 135. So why going up to 145 to fight a thicker fighter doesn't make any sense to me, especially because Pascual's fought at 135 in the past. So I think I'm going to go with Edwards here, but there's a path for Ramona Pascual, and that is to get takedowns, work for submissions, land ground and pound, and do it for 3 straight rounds. And if she can do that, she can absolutely win a decision here. But Jocelyn Edwards is very durable. Like I said, only been finished once in 4 losses. So, it's probably either Pascual by decision or Edwards gets the job done either with a knockout or with a decision. So, yeah, not a strong lean either way for me, man.
Yeah, definitely not. Edwards opened at -180. She's currently -180. Pascual opened at +155, and she's currently +155. I'll tell you what, if I laid -180 on Joslyn Edwards, I'd end up putting a baseball bat into my TV after she got taken down. I mean, her takedown defense is bad. Her get-up game is bad. But yeah, like you said, I agree with everything you said. On the feet, it's Joslyn Edwards all day. I just have a feeling she does get taken down, and she really doesn't have a willingness to get up. So I just can't get to the -180 on Edwards here. The fight goes to decision is -170. The fight doesn't get the decision is +140. I have a feeling I'm not touching this fight unless more money keeps coming in on Edwards. I might take a shot on the dog, but I feel like it's one I'm just going to stay away from. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or doesn't go?
No. It's like you say, I could not lay one. I mean, if you said you have to bet a money line here, I'd just say Pascual, and I'd be like, I hope she gets takedowns, because we've seen Edwards in the 45 minutes in the UFC cage, Brady, 59.33% control time allowed over a 3-fight sample size. That is very bad when what you're saying when you're betting the Edwards side is, I think she can keep this fight on the feet. Well, about 35% of her UFC experience, 45 minutes in the cage. So that would be 13 and a half, about 15 minutes out of 45 has been spent striking at range. So that's not good enough. if she loses that many minutes in the grappling in this one, it's going to be Pascual. So, yeah, it's, dog or pass, I guess, on the money line for me. And for the time props at 145, I'm just not touching it. There's no data at 145. And if I don't have data to kind of lean back and give myself some benchmarks on, I'm just going to stay away.
Yeah, and people in the chat is saying the weigh-ins are going to be interesting. I think they will be as well. I want to see how much bigger Joslyn Edwards is. I want to see how much thicker Pascual is as well. So yeah, the weigh-ins are going to be important for this one. We got Loose Asshole with the bag of oranges for Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, did you have to beat anybody with oranges last week?
Yeah, the thing we have to get ready for stack diggers and stuff. And if I got to fly out to Arizona to beat Clint with a bag of oranges, and then I hear that, Locke's getting married, I got to go, I heard he bet on Carolina. Yeah, it won, but I still got to go beat him with the bag of oranges. And now I got to ruin a wedding. It made me realize that maybe I spoke too soon, and I don't have the bandwidth right now to be able to beat everybody that makes bad bets with a bag of oranges. But I think it's a great meme, and it's a great thing to keep in the back of your mind that next knock on the door could be your Uncle Weezy with a bag of oranges the next time you make a stupid bet.
Yeah, especially if you bet on Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Felice Herrig. By the way, I can't believe Karolina got her first finish against Herrig in that fight.
She looked fantastic.
She did.
She looked fantastic. And that's one of those things like, all right, hey, if you're on the Karolina side and you cashed a bet, good for you. You made the right bet. But, I did not see that coming. She looked great. She really did. And then Felice retired in the cage. And that's another thing. Her head might not have even been in that fight. A lot of reasons, a lot of narrative things that lead you to say, stay away there. That's why I did.
Yeah, for sure. And this first fight that is probably one I am staying away from, but we'll go to the next fight. We have the people's main event here, at least my main event. We have Liang Na going against Silvana Gomez Juarez. We have Liang Na, who's 25 years old, 5'5", they 66-inch reach. We have Silvana Gomez Juarez, 37 years old, 5'3", with a 65-inch reach. So yeah, massive tail to tape advantage for Liang Na here. She's going to be 12 years younger. She's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, and she's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage as well. We take a look at their last few fights. Liang Na, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She did lose in her debut against Ariana Carnelosi in, one of the most exciting fights of the year. I believe that was the very first fight card back with fans, and I believe they kicked off the card, and it was just back and forth nonstop for about a round. And it was that fight where she was so tired at the end of the first round that her one of her coaches, had to actually come and pick her up, drag her to her corner because she was so exhausted. The ref almost stopped the fight, and eventually she was TKO'd by Ariana Carnelosi. But Silvana Gomez Juarez, she is 0-2 in the UFC, getting submitted by both Lupita Godinez and Vanessa Demopoulos. So this is a very exciting fight. I'm a big fan of Liang Na, not only because of her haircut, just her style. She's a very fun fighter for the division. She's a good wrestler, good grappler, but the problem with her is she's a good wrestler and a good grappler for about a round. I believe all but one of her wins come in the very first round between amateur and pro, and I think that's 15 or 16 combined wins there. When she does get out of the first round, her cardio tends to drop off a cliff. So I think Liang Na is very live to win this fight. Silvana Gomez Juarez, her takedown defense thus far is 16%. She's been submitted 2 or 3 times at this point. Liang Na is going to have a bunch of opportunities to submit Silvana Gomez Juarez early on here in the first round. But the problem is, if it does get out of the first round, Liang Na is going to slow down, and Silvana Gomez Juarez has a lot of power. So it's one of those fights where I think it's Liang Na first round sub, or I think Silvana Gomez Juarez round 2 or round 3 KO. But I think somebody's getting finished here, Weezy.
You got that right, man. And I'll tell you something. This is a low-level women's fight for the strawweight division, but I would not be mad at all if this kicked off the main card, because it's honestly going to be that fun of a fight. Now, I know it's low-level. It would be disrespectful to some of the more experienced fighters on the card, but this Na Liang woman, she just brings it, dude. She leaves it all in the cage. And it doesn't take her 15 minutes to leave it all in there. It takes her about 3.5 minutes to leave it all in there. And if she doesn't get you out of there by then, it's pretty much it's gonna finish in the second round. And I think she's been to the third round once in 18 fights. And check it out, dude. 18 professional fights for Na Liang. Average fight time 3.69 minutes. You want to talk about kill or be killed. And an 85% finish rate in her 13 wins and an 80% finish rate in her 5 losses. So, yeah, she's absolutely just leaves it all out there, completely empties the tank. And it's because Na Liang has a very, very, very grappling heavy style. She doesn't look to be comfortable at all striking, so she will just sell out for the takedown. And she's so uncomfortable striking that if she doesn't get the first, she'll just shoot for the second, third, fourth, fifth. And it's just basically a desperation to grapple. And she doesn't have the cardio to push that pace for very long. So makes for a very exciting fighting style where these fights almost always finish inside the distance. So, yeah, and let me go to my prop template here and just get those numbers in terms of, okay, so 32 professional fights combined for Na Liang and Silvana Gomez Juarez, and 26 of them have finished inside the distance. That is 81.3% of their fights that have finished inside the distance. So these girls are both kill or be killed. There's nothing but green on the prop template, and all 3 of their combined UFC fights have finished inside the distance. So, and they're all losses. So you've got to love violence in this spot here. Now, Na Liang is going to sell out for the grappling, and in her fight against Carnelossi, 83.5% of that fight took place in control time positions for and against. And for Silvana Gomez Juarez, it's been almost 70% of her fights that have taken place in control time positions for or against, which is a huge red flag because Silvana's a striker and a pure one at that. She's not a good grappler. She's been submitted in 2 of her 4 losses, and she's gotten 2 submission wins, but she's primarily, a striker and a knockout artist. 8 of her 10 wins inside the distance, 6 by knockout, 2 by submission. So, this is going to be a fight that probably finishes under a round and a half. Na Liang, unless she's completely changed her style, is going to be 5 minutes of hell and then nothing left after that. And the fight that I have to see is Na Liang versus Kihi Wang or Yan Kihi, because 2 of the biggest gassers. And then you got Na Liang, 2 handsome fighters too, with haircuts you could set your watch to, and not just selling out for the grappling. Kihi is all muscle. She looks like she's been pulling a plow. So, to see that train crash, and it was finished at 4:58 of round 2 by Yan Kihi with an arm bar. I'm sure they probably had to stretcher both of them out of the cage from exhaustion in that particular battle. And I can't find that fight on the tape index, so I'm pissed. I want to see that one. So if anyone can come up with Wu Ling Feng Wars tapes, I think it's Wu Ling Feng 28. I want to see Na Liang versus Yan Kihi, but this is going to be an absolute war for as long as it lasts. And I'm predicting that Na Liang takes this woman down and submits her in the first round.
Yeah, me too. I think that's like very, very live here. And if not, I think Silvana Gomez Juarez knocks her out. Like Silvana, we saw in her last fight, she can crack. She hits hard. And she's going to knock the haircut off of Na Liang if it gets out of the first round, man. So, yeah, I like violence here. I mean, just take a look at Na Liang. She has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 19, 24, 5 fights out of 27 combined amateur and pro. Only 4 of them have went to the second round, and then only 1 has went to the third round. Only 1 of them in 27 combined amateur and pro, and it was a decision loss to Aliyah Shakarova, another fighter that got popped for something. She's
and another killer haircut, by the way. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm just saying, like, she's only been to the third round 1 time. Like, she is the definition of kill or be killed. And yeah, I think violence is the way. Like, it's not often at all. Like, I can't recall another time where we get a 115-pound fight that the over-under is actually set at 1.5. They set it at 1.5. The over 1.5 is -150. The under 1.5 is +120. There's no fight goes to decision or fight doesn't go yet, but they have it out for every single other fight. So that's kind of weird, but looks like Silvana Gomez-Juarez is the favorite. She opened at -150. Currently -150. Liang Na opened up +130. She's currently +130. The props I'm going to be looking at, I think the under 1.5, honestly, I know it's a 150-pound fight. I think the under 1.5 is a good look at plus money. But most importantly, like the under 2.5 as well. And then the fight doesn't get the decision. I'm really hoping they mess this one up, Weezy, since it's a 115-pound women's fight. The fight doesn't go, hoping for a good price there. And then also a Liang Na first round submission sprinkle or first round sprinkle, hoping to sprinkle that as well. I think there's some good opportunities to make some money on this fight.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, this Na Liang, I mean, she's crushed some cans. You know, there's a lot of names. Zhao Kang Feng, Asia Klutyova, Ekaterina Makarova, Hanna Yurchenkova, Yulia Kutsenko, Ji Mao. Like, you don't see a lot of names, but they're decent records on some of these girls. But check out who she's losing to. Lilia Shakarova fought in the UFC. Juliana Velasquez, that's a champion, right? Isn't Juliana Velasquez a Bellator champion?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I think she is. Maria Agapova, Kwehi Yan, the plow puller, and then Ariane Carnelosi, who's been pulling a couple of plows in her day as well. And, you know, so she's losing to legitimate mixed martial artists. Those are her only 5 losses. All five of those women are legit. And as a matter of fact, you know, Agapova and Kwehi Yan are 125 pounders. They're not even straw weights. So she's legit. She's a good fighter. So yeah, I do like Na Liang here. I love violence here. And it's like, I'm actually kind of surprised. My stats are wrong here. I've got 15 of Na Liang's 18 fights finishing inside the distance. It's actually 17. So it's actually 28 out of 32. It's like almost 90% of their combined fights have finished inside the distance. So yeah, it's a slam fight doesn't go to decision spot when those lines do open.
Yeah, and by the way, Juliana was the fighter that did get finished by Liz Carmouche with that crucifix that everybody was mad about, the stoppage.
So, but that was a title fight then, wasn't it? Yeah.
She was the champion, and then she got beat, yeah.
So, yeah, so there you go. I mean, she's fighting really good competition. And I mean, like, that's at like 135, right? Or did Carmouche actually cut down to 125 for 125. That fight? It was 125, but still, like I say, Na Liang's losing to legitimate competition here, and she is hell unleashed for those first 5 minutes. So this is going to be a really fun fight.
For sure. Just 2 last things. David saying 32 out of 38 of their fights have combined inside the distance. And then this is interesting. Glenbot saying they've went over 1.5 only 2 out of 10 times in the last 5 fights. And then over 2.5, 1 out of 10 in their last 5. So that's interesting. They've combined 10 fights. They've only went over that 2.5 just once between the two of them. That's interesting as well.
Yeah, and it's striker versus grappler too, you know, so each one of them can have their way when the fight is in the spot where they're the most comfortable. So it really sets up for a great violence spot.
Assuming you haven't seen it, please everyone in the chat watch Liang versus Carnelosi from I mean that
such
fight,
a great fight.
It gave me chills watching it. It gave me chills, dude. Like it was and I did have a violence bet on that fight. I had the under 2.5. I was like, yes, I love it. I love it.
The crowd was there too. It was the first fight of the night, and maybe that stadium was filled in 15-20%. Man, it sounded like there were 20,000 people in there absolutely going nuts. And why wouldn't they? There was a knockdown in the first 3 seconds of that fight. And I think there were like 7 reversals and takedowns and ground and pound and submission attempts. It was absolutely crazy.
And then right after that, it was Jeff Molina, Arichi Long. Like, that card was good.
Oh, my God, that's right.
Yeah, that card was amazing.
That was awesome. Yeah, what a card that was, man.
Oh, yeah.
Live fans add so much to this sport. That's why the UFC has got to start getting back to making live cards every damn weekend. I think some of these Apex cards, Brady, over the last year, they've been getting a little lackluster because they don't have to sell out. They don't have to sell to any kind of people that are going to be buying tickets. So they can just put it on ESPN Plus, you know, and fulfill some obligations. But I want to see them fight in front of live audiences because that's what really gets the blood boiling of us MMA fans when we're watching those live crowds cheer for awesome fights like Na Liang versus Ariane Carnelosi, which was an instant classic.
100%. I definitely agree there. We got Glimbot, 5,000 with the dono saying, thanks, gents. First week tracked in 8-week heater. There you go. I want to thank the amazing chat and the team against the bookies. You guys are the best. You are the best, Glimbot. Thank you for participating in the chat as always and bringing the stats there. So I say we move on to the next fight. We spent a lot of time on that one, but rightfully so. That fight's going to be awesome. We have Kung Ho Kong going against Bakary Dana. We have Kung Ho Kong, who is 34 years old with a 5'9" height, 73-inch reach. Dana is 32 years old. He is 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. So it's going to be Dana, who's 2 years younger, and it's going to be Kong with a 2-inch height advantage and then also a 3-inch reach advantage as well. So Kong is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a split decision against Ricardo Ramos, a submission win against Ishihara, a decision win against Brandon Davis, a decision win against Ping Long Lu, and then a decision loss against Ronnie Yaya. As far as Dana, he made his debut against Alateng Haley, lost that fight by decision, knocked out Guido Canetti in the first round, knocked out Kevin Natividad in the first round, knocked out Brandon Davis in the first round, and they got knocked out, surprisingly, I believe it was the second round against Chris Gutierrez. So, yeah, we have a striker versus a grappler here. Went back and watched all the tape available of Dana, and I guess there was really only one fight where somebody did try to take him down, and that was the Alateng Haley fight. Alateng Haley was able to take him down, I think, 3 or 4 times late in that third round, was able to control him and have success. I feel like that's going to be the game plan of Kung Ho Kong. But on the feet, Dana Bakral is going to have a very big advantage here. I love the volume of Dana. He's attempting 15 strikes per minute. And then on top of that, this guy's power is just next level. So I guess the question is, can Kung Ho Kong get it down to the mat? If he can, can he control Dana? If this does stay on the feet, Kung Ho Kong could be in some serious trouble. So another really close fight. 3 really close fights in a row here for me, Weezy. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I kind of did a deep dive on this one myself because it is a very interesting striker versus grappler matchup. If we look at the control time statistics for both fighters, we got Kung Ho Kong with a 10-fight sample size in the UFC and about 125 minutes in the UFC cage. And he's controlling his opponents 41.67% of the time and being controlled 22.62% of the time. So over a really big sample size, we're seeing Kang be in grappling positions about 64% of his UFC career. While for Dana Bakral, over a 5-fight sample size, he's sitting in control time position just over 13% of the time. So these guys are used to completely different styles of fights. Dana Bakral is used to people not grappling him, and he's not trying to grapple. He only has 1 takedown in 5 UFC fights, and he's only got 2 takedown attempts. So he's not trying to wrestle here. He's trying to keep the fight on the feet, wing huge hooks and overhands. Nothing comes straight down the pipe. Everything is looking to take your head off. And he throws hooks in combinations. And if the first one doesn't get you and the second one doesn't get you, the third might. Dude's got power in both hands. He's knocked people out with the left hook twice. He got Natividad and Canetti with the left hook. And he got the right on Brandon Davis, just absolutely, took his head off with the right hand. So he's got power in both hands. But there were some interesting stats, which I pulled up here. Bakral is 3-0 when he gets a knockdown, and he's 0-2 when he doesn't. That sounds exactly like Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He's kind of like a bantamweight version of Rozenstruik. He's looking to take your head off. He's not really a minute winner because he's not grappling at all. He does throw more volume, and he does land more strikes than his opponents. But you could tell in that Alateng Haley fight, when those guys were standing up and banging, it was Alateng who was landing the bigger shots, and he's the one who won that fight because he won around with grappling and because he actually won minutes in the striking against Dana by just avoiding the big shot and landing 1 or 2 on his own. So in Dana's 3 wins, they're all in the first round by KO. His opponent has never attempted a takedown. So that's going to be completely different than what he's going to see from Kung Ho Kong here. And he's got an awesome left hook, Bakral does. So that's what I mean when I say that this guy's an orthodox fighter, but he's got power in both hands. He's knocking more people out at the UFC level with the left hand than he is with the right. Now, for Kung Ho Kong, 7 of 10 UFC fights have been a decision. 5 of them are split decisions. So this guy's been in a lot of close fights when he's not finishing fights or being finished. And he's never beaten an opponent in the UFC with a winning UFC record. So Kyung Ho Kang has 6 wins, and the combined records of those 6 guys, 13 and 22 in the UFC. And it's kind of the same thing with Batgarel. Batgarel doesn't have a good win either. Brandon Davis is 3 and 6. Kevin Natividad was 0 and 3. And the other win was against
Guido Canetti.
Guido Canetti, 3 and 5. And Guido Canetti beat absolute cans. So neither one of these guys has shown much in their ability to get good UFC wins, to win against a guy with a UFC winning record. And Kyung Ho Kang's going to wrestle 32 takedown attempts in 10 UFC fights. He's getting them at almost a 60% clip, 2.23 takedowns per 15 minutes, and 42% control time for. So Dana's going to have to try to keep this fight on the feet, and we're going to get to see Dana Batgarel face takedown attempts, which is something he's only seen in 1 of 5 fights at the UFC level. There's only 1 fight where his opponent has even attempted to take him down, and he lost that fight against Alatang Lee. So it's a very interesting stylistic matchup, in my opinion. Kyung Ho Kang will go to the grappling when he's not the better striker. And we saw against Ronnie Yahya that this dude can have success on the feet as well. So very interesting fight. Dana Batgarel and Kyung Ho Kang, both Asians. So it's not good. So they're going to be flying from the same part of the world to go to Singapore here and fight this fight. So there's no particular advantage in terms of where they're coming from. This is going to be a really good fight, dude. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I think it's really close. I think Dana has power to knock out anybody, but you take a look at Kyung Ho Kang, 27 fights. He's only been knocked out once. Guess the last time he's been knocked out.
It was like back in like 2013, I think, right? Or 2012?
2008.
Oh my God. So yeah, wow. 14 years ago.
It was by soccer kicks against Kwang Hee Lee.
Yeah, and in those Asian promotions, like they'll stop fights early, but they'll be like, yeah, you can knee your opponent in the head when they're grounded. You can kick. That soccer kick is a kick to the head of a grounded opponent. So I guess if that's how you get finished, this guy is tough.
He's very tough. Yeah.
He's only been finished twice in 9 losses.
Yeah, man. So I don't know. I think Dana, although Kyung Ho Kang has not been knocked out since 2008, I'm not going to completely rule out a Dana knockout. I think it's on the table, but Kyung Ho Kang's going to have a path to victory here. He's going to go for takedowns. We know that for a fact. Bootsy likes him as well. And yeah, he is the dog. We take a look at the odds here. Dana opened up as if I can find it here. There it is. So Dana opened up as a minus 150 favorite. He is currently minus 149. Kyung Ho Kang opened up plus 130. He is currently plus 120. And they do not have the fight goes or fight doesn't go. They have it on Bovada. So on Bovada, the fight goes to decision is minus 110, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 120. So I don't know. I think if there is a finish in this fight, it's probably by Dana. I could see a Kyung Ho Kang decision win. Any thoughts on the time props or any thoughts on the money line?
Yeah, well, like we said, Dana, 3 wins in the UFC, all in the first round, all by knockout. So, he doesn't really, and like I mentioned in the Alatang fight, he lost round 1 on the feet, and he lost round 3 via his grappling defense not being good enough. So it's not like this guy's winning minutes at the UFC level. So I kind of feel like if you think Kyung Ho Kang gets it done, maybe you bet him to win by decision, because he's either submitting people or winning by decision, but he's a pretty good minute winner. And like I said, he might be able to hang in the striking with Dana for a while. So I'm kind of leaning Ho Kang here like Bootsy is. And I think that the grappling heavy game style of Ho Kang is going to be great for him here. And I just noticed I had a little bit of stat here that I ignored. And that's, you see the 41.67 control time for, 22.62% control time against for Kang. But in the 6 wins, it's 50.8% control time for and 14.6% control time against. So he's doing an even better job in his wins of dominating those control time positions. And I think that's going to be the path for him here. So I'm going to be picking Kyung Ho Kang by decision.
And even like, I think DraftKings Sportsbook, they put out that decision only prop. I think Kong decision only, it could be a good spot. And maybe it is a good spot. Maybe they get it at plus money because he is a dog. I doubt it. But I think if Dana wins, it is probably a knockout, probably an early knockout as well. But yeah, Kyung Ho Kang by decision would be something I'm interested in as well.
Absolutely. It's a great fight. This would be good on the main card as a main card kickoff as well, because I think they got Maddalena Amiv as the main card starter for this pay-per-view, and that doesn't make much sense to me. Maddalena only his second UFC fight, and Amiv is just in boring fights quite a bit. So I'd like to see one of these other fights that has the potential to be a good fire starter for that pay-per-view be moved up, and this would be a great choice in my opinion.
Yeah, this, or if it was up to me, it'd be Liang Na on there as well.
It would be awesome, dude. I really believe it would be awesome. And I mean, it's going to be a great fight. Can't wait for it. I'm going to have a ton of money on now Liang's fight, man.
Let's go. I can't wait. All right, we'll keep moving on. We have Andre Fiala going against Jake Matthews. We have Fiala, who is 28 years old, 6 foot, with a 74-inch reach. Jake Matthews, 27 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach. Jake Matthews, 1 year younger. Jake Matthews is going to be at a 1-inch height disadvantage and also a 1-inch reach disadvantage as well. Under Fiala, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Now made his debut on short notice against Michel Pereira, lost by decision. Knocked out Miguel Baez in the very first round, and then knocked out Cameron Van Camp in the very first round as well. Making a really quick turnaround for Fiala, and then it's the complete opposite for Jake Matthews. We have not seen Jake Matthews, and I think it's been like a year and 3 months since we've seen him. It's been a while against his last loss with Sean Brady by submission in the 3rd round. But prior to that, he did beat Diego Sanchez, Emil Meek, and Rostam Akhman all by decision. And then he did get submitted by Anthony Rocca Martin. So 3-2 in his last 5 fights is Jake Matthews. And yeah, this is a very interesting fight. I see Jake Matthews is a very popular dog, and I honestly get it to an extent. Fiala, he's kind of a first-round knockout or bust guy. He could get a knockout in the 2nd round, I guess, but he slows down as the fight goes on a ton. He still has, some power in the 2nd round, but when the 3rd round hits, he just doesn't seem to have anything. Went back and watched a couple of his fights. I watched the decision he lost, just had nothing left in the 3rd round. And then I watched the fight against Chris Curtis, just had nothing left in the 3rd round. Curtis was actually able to finish him in the 3rd round. So if Fiala is going to get it done here, he's probably going to get it done in the very first round. On top of that, this is a short notice. I know he fought a month ago, but what is his cardio going to look like? Because his cardio in general is just not that great. Jake Matthews, a guy that I'm not overly impressed with throughout his career. He's very young. He came into the UFC extremely young, and at 27 years old, the dude has 15 fights. I went back and watched his Kevin Lee fight. This dude looks completely different than he does now. He was so young in that Kevin Lee fight. Kevin Lee was able to take him down in a TKO, and I believe that was his first and only KO loss. But yeah, Jake Matthews has looked decent as of late. But Diego Sanchez, Emil Meek, Rostam Akhman, not the best competition. Yeah, just another tricky one here, Weezy. I feel like this one is kind of Fiala early knockout, which I think could be on the table, or Matthews kind of grinds out a decision here.
Yeah, both of these guys are young, man. And Matthews only 27, Fiala only 28. And despite the fact that neither of them are 30 yet, they both have more than 20 professional fights. But it's Matthews with the more high-level competition here. 15 of 22 pro fights for Matthews at the UFC level. And I would say more than 75% of his cage time has been in the UFC as a pro. So while Fiala has 21 pro fights and only 3 of them at the UFC level, but prior to being in the UFC, he was fighting high-level regional scene competition. Both of these guys are good finishers. 65% for Matthews in 17 wins, 87% for Fiala in 16 wins. That's 14 of 16 wins coming inside the distance for Fiala. 13 by knockout, 1 by submission. And then we got Fiala in his 4 losses has been knocked out twice. And in Matthews' 5 losses, he's been submitted 3 times and knocked out once. So 6 out of 9 combined losses inside the distance for these two guys. That's a pretty good inside the distance loss rate there at almost a 200, minus 200 implied probability is what the line would look like for that percentage, minus 200. So Fiala losing minutes on the feet here. He lands 4.23, absorbs 6.75 significant strikes per minute. His opponents are throwing 13.09 significant strikes attempts per minute, while Fialho only attempts 9.67. So he's getting outlanded and outvolumed, but you can absolutely do that and win fights as long as you land that one big shot. And that's what Fialho has done in the 2 fights that he's won at the UFC level. He's gotten 2 knockdowns in those 2 fights and therefore 2 wins. So guy's got a ton of power. Matthews has 4 knockdowns in 519 significant strikes landed. So 4 knockdowns in 15 fights, 0.35 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So he's got some power of his own. The minute winner on the feet should be Jake Matthews here. He lands 3.03 significant strikes per minute, only absorbs 2.16. You love that ratio. He throws more than 1 significant strike attempt more per minute than his opponents do. And he's only been knocked down once in 15 UFC fights. So the guy's got a good chin, and he's been pretty durable in terms of not getting knocked out. And then if you look at the grappling, Jake Matthews is getting almost 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, out-controlling his opponents at almost a 2-to-1 ratio. He's not particularly efficient on the ground. He's gotten 22 takedowns, only allowed 6, but yet he's only out-controlling his opponents at less than a 2-to-1 ratio, but he's out-takedowning them at almost a 4-to-1 ratio. So when Jake Matthews does get takedowns, he's really not winning a lot of minutes down there, but sometimes in close rounds, it's enough to win the minutes of the round because he's landing more significant strike attempts or significant strikes per minute, and he's throwing more attempts than his opponents, and he's landing more knockdowns than he's getting knocked down. So you look at the experience here. Matthews fighting the more experienced competition and guys with winning records, but Fialho is as well. It's just less experienced guys. The wins pretty close. The losses pretty close. It's just that Fialho is fighting Matthews is fighting the more experienced competition, and Fialho is fighting the guys with the better win-loss records in terms of their ratios. So, yeah, it's a pretty close fight. Fialho early, but I like the forward pressure of Fialho. I love the power, and I love the fact that he still swings bombs even when he's tired. But we've seen Fialho death gas in the past a couple of times, particularly on the regional scene. But it looks like those problems are getting fixed now that he's at Sanford full time. Yeah, this is a great fight. I'm leaning Fialho. I don't think Matthews is a good enough minute winner here to stay safe on the feet. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Fialho and hold him down there. And I think the longer this goes, eventually Fialho is going to land a big shot, change the trajectory of this fight, and get a win. But, it's in Singapore. That's a much easier trip for Jake Matthews. But we were looking at it before we started the show, Brady. And, Fialho is already over there with Kape and somebody else that's from Sanford.
Brennan
getting
Allen.
Ready.
Yep.
So going to be a good fight. I think Fialho gets it done, but I don't think I'm going to be touching this one.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely could. I just feel like the line should be flipped here. Fialho's the favorite. He opened up -150, is -145. Jake Matthews opened up +130, currently +125. The reason I feel like Matthews should be the favorite, I mean, this guy, not only is he younger, but he's fought 15 fights in the UFC. Jake Matthews is going to have a good opportunity to win minutes here. He's going to, we saw some in the chat said it. We saw Cameron Van Camp win minutes against Fialho for a little bit. He actually hurt Fialho at one point and ended up getting knocked out, but still. And then also, the wrestling as well. If he's able to mix in takedowns, push him against the cage, get him tired, and as the fight goes on, like Fialho is going to most definitely slow down. So Fialho could absolutely catch him. Fialho hits like an absolute truck, but Jake Matthews has never been knocked out standing. His one knockout loss was against Kevin Lee. He was put in a bad spot, flattened out, and the ref stepped in. So yeah, I do like the dog here. I don't know if I'm going to get there from a betting perspective. Maybe like a Matthews decision, Fialho KO. Looks like they do have some props out. So Fialho inside the distance, +110, and then Matthews by decision, +255. So I might look at something like that. But the over/under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 +100. The under 2.5 -130. The fight goes to decision +130. The fight doesn't go to decision is -160. You're on the Fialho side, so you got to love that -160 there.
Yeah, I don't love the minus 160, but you know, these guys, like I say, very interesting here. Matthews 5 losses at the UFC level, and 4 of them have been inside the distance. And Fialho's finished both of his wins, so I would probably rather play Fialho inside the distance rather than the fight doesn't go to decision. And I would rather play Matthews by decision than I would the fight goes.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to look at it. The 2 most likely outcomes there. And then also the Fialho first round prop. I'm curious to see where that opens up at as well.
Absolutely, because man, does he hit, dude. I mean, when this guy lands, people lose consciousness. He had an elbow. I forget who he was. It Lincoln Puig that he knocked out with that elbow. It was absolutely nasty. But he's just got otherworldly power.
Yeah, a lot of people saying Matthews is a can. I don't know, but if he's a can, I mean, just got submitted by Sean Brady. He's good. He's
now,
pretty
27-year-old kid with 15 UFC fights and a 10-5 record. Yeah, he's beating guys with losing records. That's a fact. You know, but he does have a win over Li Jingliang. He does have a win over Johnny Case, who's a really good wrestler. But the majority of the wins that Matthews does have at the UFC level or against lower level competition with losing records. But that Li Jingliang win was a real thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We will keep moving on, though. We have Steve Garcia going against Mahashadi or Mahashidi. What is it, Mahashidi or Mahashadi?
Mahashate, yes. Not Mahashidi. Yeah,
maybe he is. I don't know, but
he could be. But he's only 23.
I know, Mahashate. So Mahashate going against Steve Garcia. Mahashate, 23 years old, 6 foot with a 71-inch reach. Steve Garcia, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Mahashate, 7 years younger, and then also Steve Garcia is going to have that 4-inch reach advantage. Mahashate went on the Contender Series. I believe they said he was like the biggest dog on the entire show. And he ended up going out there and winning a decision, unanimous. Steve Garcia, 4-1 his last 5 fights, made his debut against Luis Pena, lost that fight by decision, and then knocked out Charlie Ontiveros. And he did have a win on the Contender Series as well. So this is a very tough fight to cap because you take a look at Mahashade, and there's literally only 2 fights available. The first fight you can watch is like a fight from like 2019, where he's getting taken down 30 times, getting controlled for like 14 minutes in a 15-minute fight. And, you know, he showed poor takedown defense, a poor get-up game. He showed good submission defense, but you can't really get a lot from that fight. The announcers kept talking about him being like a boxing champion. So apparently this guy's a really good boxer, and you can see it in the Contender Series fight because obviously people were expecting him to be very bad, and I guess that wasn't the case. He looked good. His striking looked good. He looked dangerous when he let his hands go. He did get hurt in the first round, but he was able to kind of turn it around and just win as the fight went on there. I found it interesting, though, that his opponent was talking about before the fight how he's excited that Mahashade was not going to try to take him down. I thought that was funny because Mahashade was probably excited as well that his opponent was not going to take him down. So they kind of both got the fight that they want. This is a fight where, you know, if Steve Garcia wants to win this fight, I mean, just take the fight down to the mat. From what I've seen, Mahashade, in the one fight I saw where his takedown defense was tested, this guy literally got taken down like 20 times. Like his takedown defense was horrible. On the feet, Mahashade is most definitely going to have opportunities. Charlie Ontiveros, the guy with the afro, went out there and almost knocked out Steve Garcia 3 different times. Early on in the first round, I think like late in the first round, and then like early in the second round, dropped Steve Garcia as well. He knocked him down 3 times. So I kind of question the chin of Garcia, and Mahashade definitely can hit hard. So if Steve Garcia goes in here with a good game plan, I think he looks like a big favorite and probably finishes Mahashade in the very first round. If Steve Garcia goes in here and wants to stand and bang with Mahashade, you know, it's going to give him a path to victory there. So yeah, it's an interesting fight. I mean, just not a fight I'm really excited to place any money on, but I feel like Steve Garcia should absolutely go out here and beat this guy. It's just if he does come in here with a poor game plan, he very well could get knocked out because Mahashade's striking is no joke. Weezy, what do you think about this one here?
Yeah, a couple little things, little nuggets here. Steve Garcia from the United States going all the way to Singapore for this fight, while it's Mahashade coming from China to Singapore. Much, much shorter trip for Mahashade. Garcia also cutting back down to 145 pounds. This dude is notorious for missing weight. He was fighting his early career at 135, and I'm not even sure he ever made weight there. And then he would move up to 145 and he'd miss weight there. His last fight was at against Ontiveros at 155. And he made weight at 155, but I think he missed weight against Pena at 45. So this is a guy who's going to be cutting back down to 145. I think after the UFC forced him to move up to 155. So you got a long plane trip here for Garcia. You got a weight cut back down to 145, which he has shown that he's not good at cutting weight. And then you got an interesting young opponent with absolutely no tape on him in Maheshate. And like you said, that Russian dude just took him down over and over and over again. It was completely useless to watch that tape because I wanted to see what his hands look like.
Yeah.
And this Russian that fought Maheshate fought the exact game plan that Corey McKenna should have fought against Elise Reed. It was perfect. And he did exactly what you would do to a boxer that has no ground game, and he just smothered him. So that opportunity is there for Garcia. Garcia is a well-rounded mixed martial artist. He would prefer to stand and bang, but in a case against a guy like Maheshate, this is an easy fight for Garcia if he just goes out there with the right game plan. And I think Maheshate will probably force him into that game plan by landing a big shot early. That'll turn Garcia into a wrestler, and then we'll see if he has success wrestling Maheshate. The kid's very young, 23 years old. He's going to be the smaller guy here. Garcia's, a 4-inch reach advantage. He's also a southpaw. 9 more pro fights, 80 more minutes in the pro cage, and more UFC experience. He's the better finisher. He's a very good striker with a ton of power. And, he's actually got a grappling game here. But the thing about Garcia, which is interesting, is he got controlled for the entire 15 minutes in the Luis Pena fight, just like Maheshate got controlled for the entire 15 minutes in the fight against the Russian kid in M1. So, whoever, if Maheshate can keep this on the feet, I think he can keep it very close. But I don't think Maheshate is that much better of a striker than Garcia is, to be honest with you. Garcia's got a ton of power in that left hand, and he hits extremely hard. So I think Garcia should win this fight, but the weight cut bothers me. Singapore, from the United States to Singapore bothers me. I need to know that he's already there. It's an interesting fight, man. But, I don't think there's a whole lot to like about Maheshate here. I think he's very one-dimensional, and I think he's going to get exposed fighting, UFC level competition here. And, you can't have big holes in your game at this level, and I think he's got a giant hole in his ground game.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. I think the striking is very competitive. I really like what I see from Garcia in terms of the striking. He mixes it up well, great elbows, great knees. He's very dangerous on the feet. I love the volume, the pressure. It's just, you have such an easy path to victory and taking this guy down. Why not take him down? We saw Garcia get that bum Ontiveros down. And what happened when he got him down? Eventually, Ontiveros ended up quitting like he typically does. His ground and pound's very, very good. I feel like if you can get Maheshate down, I feel like he could finish him there. But yeah, if he wants to go out there and stand and bang with him, maybe he has success. But again, that's giving Maheshate his one path to victory. So if I'm laying minus 170 on Steve Garcia, I would absolutely want him to go out there and shoot takedowns, like take this guy down. I think it's an easy game plan. But as we know, that is not always the case. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I think Garcia should win this fight. We have Garcia opening up as a minus 300 favorite, and he's now minus 170. Maheshate opening up plus 250, and he is currently plus 145. The over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 plus 130. The under 2.5 is minus 160. The fight goes to decision plus 165, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 205. I think this fight finishes minus 205. Not sure how excited I am about that, but I think if they stand and bang, either guy's live for a knockout. And then I think if Steve Garcia can go for takedowns, I think he's live for like a TKO or potentially a sub. So I think the fight doesn't go as a decent look. And then I just can't get to the money line on Steve Garcia. The minus 170, I want to know for a fact that he's going to wrestle. I'm not sure I can trust him to do so. And just see him getting knocked down 3 times by Charlie Ontiveros. just scares the crap out of me. So I'm going to pick Steve Garcia to win. I'm going to take him to win by finish, but nothing really jumping off the page at me. Anything sticking out to you, Weezy?
Not really. I just do something funny. Maheshate, you saw him get absolutely blanketed by that Russian dude. And then when I'm watching the Contender Series footage against Achilles Estremadura, the announcers are talking about how Maheshate's got a Greco-Roman background. That reminded me of Hu Yazong his exactly. Greco-Roman background where he can't wrestle at all. I'm like, dude, I've got to move to China because I could be a Greco-Roman champion, because I evidently you can walk off the street into a Greco-Roman wrestling match there and win a medal because evidently there are only 2 Greco-Roman wrestlers in the entire country of China with over 1 billion people. And their names are Hu Yazong and Maheshate, and of course they're champions because there's nobody for them to beat because nobody Greco-Roman wrestles. So Maheshate's a wrestler, like I'm a bird, so it's this should be if Garcia should wrestle here, but you just don't know. He's got confidence in his hands too. Going to be an interesting fight.
Yeah, man, how'd that Greco-Roman background work out for you, Zhang Hu? My goodness. Yeah,
dude,
I heard this.
Procházka absolutely bodied him, man.
Yeah, so I heard that too. I was like, what? Are you serious? And then I immediately thought of Zhang Hu as well.
I'm going to put on my Twitter profile that I have a Greco-Roman background.
You should.
Evidently, you can just put that there, and people will be like, "Wow, he's got a Greco-Roman background."
Champion as well. Yeah, why not? I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
But I don't either. You can't. You can't bullshit somebody.
No. But what an interesting, weird fight this is. Oh, by the way, what were your thoughts on the fight? Doesn't go minus 200. A little chalky, but it should finish.
Yeah, it is a little bit chalky, especially for this division. 145-pound fights finish only about 43% of the time. So I just think paying a 66% implied probability, especially when Maheshate showed some pretty good toughness in the Achilles Estremadura fight, I would probably either bet that it goes or just stay away. I could see it being an absolute war on the feet and somebody getting finished. So the time props really don't interest me.
Yep, sounds good to me. So we'll move on to the next fight, and we have Seungwoo Choi going against Josh Culibao. We have Seungwoo Choi, who's 29 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. We have Josh Culibao, who is 28 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Josh Culibao 1 year younger, and then it's going to be Seungwoo Choi, who has a 2-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Seungwoo Choi is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had a submission loss to Gavin Tucker, a decision win against Suman Mokhtarian, a decision win against Yusuf Salau, a knockout win against Julian Erosa, and then a submission loss to Alex Caceres his last time out. As far as Joshua Culibao, he is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Jalen Turner. I believe it was short notice. Got finished in that, I believe it was 2nd or 3rd round late in the fight there by knockout. He had a draw against Charles Jourdain as a big dog, and then he beat Nordin Beke by decision as well. So, yeah, this is pretty much a striker versus striker. The thing with Seungwoo Choi, what did he struggle with earlier in the UFC? The takedown defense. Movsar Evloev took him down several times, took him to a decision, beat him there. And then Gavin Tucker took him down several times, ended up submitting him. And then since then, Yusuf Zalal even got him down a couple times. I think he has improved a lot of that part of his game, but this is a fight where I really don't think that's going to matter too much. Joshua Culibao, 11 takedown attempts. He has gotten 0 of them. I feel like this fight does stay standing. And at that point, I think Seungwoo Choi is the much more dangerous striker. This guy hits like a truck. I'm not sure if he has that blonde hair for this fight or not, but if he does, I like him even more. But yeah, good striking, good takedown defense. It should stay on the feet, and he should be landing the harder shots. So yeah, I like Seungwoo Choi here. I'm not in love with the price tag. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think Seungwoo Choi should get this done, whether it's a decision or KO here. Weezy, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I like Culibao. His striking looks really good. If you just kind of watch Seungwoo Choi and you watch Culibao and their UFC experience, you're like, yeah, the striking actually looks good for both of these guys. It's just that Seungwoo is showing that power, landing 3 knockdowns in only 6 fights. With Culibao, he's got 1 in 3 fights, and it was a nice one against Jourdain, man. I'm surprised Jourdain got up from that because he got his nose broken there. But yeah, these guys are good strikers. Sung Woo Choi has done a decent job of mixing in the wrestling. He's gotten 4 takedowns in 6 fights. Kulibao's gotten none. Kulibao much better at keeping the fight on the feet, as he stopped 13 of 15 takedown attempts. That's almost 87% takedown defense. But he, people are trying to submit him. He's yielding 2.37 submission attempts for 15 minutes, and he's getting out-controlled 7% to 35%. So he's losing minutes on the ground. And then in the striking numbers, we see Sung Woo landing about a half more significant strike per minute than he absorbs, while Kulibao is absorbing a little bit more than he lands. Kulibao throwing about the same amount of volume as his opponents, but Sung Woo Choi throwing almost twice as much volume as his opponents. So, yeah, I think Sung Woo Choi should be the better minute winner on the feet here. I think he's beating better competition. I think he's fighting the better brand of competition here. And I think that, his Muay Thai background is going to be I think it's going to be the deciding factor of this fight. I think he's just the crisper, more eye-catching striker. And I think he's done a better job of actually mixing in his grappling. And we've seen him grow to be able to stop those takedown attempts and keep the fight standing where he's most comfortable. It was Caceres getting his back standing that cost him, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, it's going to be a good fight, man. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than the line is saying right now. I think this line is a little bit wide on Choi. Kulibao, if you go and you watch the tape on him, he's good. He's good, and he's a good grappler too. He hasn't been successful getting it there, and he's been a little bit too comfortable off of his back trying to work for submissions. But Jalen Turner controlled him, but I mean, they're not even close to being in the same weight class. Jalen Turner's a gigantic lightweight, and that fight was at lightweight on short notice. So Kulibao, when he's had full camps, has looked pretty good here, going to decision with Charles Jourdain in a draw and beating Shah Yuan, who's a good wrestler. So it'll be interesting to see Sung Woo get to fight somebody that's not going to, drown him in takedown attempts, as Choi has seen 39 takedown attempts in only 6 UFC fights. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a high action fight here, but I'm picking Sung Woo Choi to win, probably by decision, but that line is a little bit wide.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I checked Sung Woo Choi's Instagram. He's not blonde hair Sung Woo Choi anymore. So laying minus 230 on him. I don't know about all of that. Open it up as a minus 250. Is currently minus 230. And Josh Kulibao opened up plus 210. Yeah, it's one of those fights where, I'm picking Sung Woo Choi. I think he wins. I think, stylistically, it's a good matchup for him. Like you said, he's not going to have to worry about the takedowns. I think he is the better striker. I think he hits harder. But I do think Joshua Kulibao could absolutely make this competitive. So, yeah, minus 230. I just am not too excited about that. The fight goes minus 110. The fight doesn't go minus 120. So kind of like a pick 'em there. I could see a Choi knockout. I could see a Choi decision. Looks like Choi by decision plus 175. Not interested. Choi inside the distance plus 165. Not interested. This is a fight I'm probably just going to pass on and watch Weezy.
Yeah, agreed. The line is just a little bit too wide. I think if it gets any wider, it might be worth taking a shot on Kulibao by decision. But other than that, yeah, it's kind of a stay away from me.
Yeah, Kulibao by decision is plus 460 right now.
Yeah. And maybe he does get a takedown or two here. He's went for the takedowns, but he just hasn't been able to get them thus far.
Yeah, he's tried to get takedowns. I think he tried to get a lot against, a much bigger Jalen Turner. I think he was like 0 for 3. And then also he did not get any against Charles Jourdain. So, I mean, there's no shame in that.
Jourdain doesn't he have like 50% takedown defense though, Jourdain?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so that's not confidence inspiring. But even though Jourdain does get taken down a lot, he's got a very good get-up game and he's got a good submission game. So, he does a great job of, getting back up to his feet. But the problem is that Kulibao couldn't even get him down. So it makes me think that Sung Woo Choi is going to win this fight, because I don't really see Kulibao being able to win minutes in the grappling by getting some takedowns or getting some top control. So, yeah, I got to lean Choi here, but it's too wide.
Yeah, for sure. Right there with you. Before we continue with the next fight, we have 171 of you in here. If you all can please smash the like button. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. If you have not already, we'll be back on Wednesday for the DFS show. Me, Weezy, Monk, and Gordo as well. I see Tajik in the chat, MMA Locker Room, Jason Sloppy, Kung Dao Chicken, all you guys. Appreciate you hanging out with us on a Sunday. Let us keep moving on to the next fight. So we have... Here we go. We have Brendan Allen going against Jacob Malkoun. We have Brendan Allen, who is 26 years old, 6'2", with a 75-inch reach. Jacob Malkoun, 26 years old, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach. Weezy, is Malkoun really 5'9"?
Yeah, I these guys lie about their goddamn height all the time, and I'm sick of it. There's no way he's 5'9".
Is he doing like a reverse lie? Like, if you're lying, wouldn't you make yourself tall? Like, is he trying to make himself look smaller?
I think so. I think that's what Volkov does. Volkov ain't 6'7". He's like 6'10". So he lies. The UFC allows him to lie, so why wouldn't they lie?
I guess. I feel like Malkoun is like at least 5'9". I feel like he's at least 5'11".
He knows how tall he is. It's not 5'9". It's not like Brendan Allen's going to be just towering over this dude. But yeah, Malkoun's a decent sized middleweight. He's not a big middleweight, but come on, 5'9". No chance.
Yeah. So I guess we'll look at the weigh-ins for this one. But yeah, if that's actually the case, like Allen's going to have a 5-inch height advantage on him, and then Allen's also going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Brendan Allen is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Got that knockout loss against Sean Strickland, a submission win against Carl Roberson, a decision win against Puliana Soriano, a knockout loss to Chris Curtis, and then a submission win against Sam Alvey. As far as Jacob Malkoun, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Phil Haas, got finished in less than 60 seconds, and then bounces back with a decision win against Abdulrazak Al-Hassan and a decision win against AJ Dobson. And yeah, this is probably one of my more confident picks on this card. There's not a ton to be confident in on this card. I think there's a lot of live dogs. I think there's a lot of close fights. But this is one I actually do like. I really like Brendan Allen in this fight. I think Brendan Allen's going to have a lot of advantages here. This is a guy that has improved his striking like leaps and bounds compared to earlier in his career to now. Training at Sanford MMA, we see a lot of improvements in that striking. I think he's fallen in love with his striking a little bit too much, because there are some fights where I'm like, Allen, you probably should go out there and take down Punahele Soriano. You probably should go out there and try to take down Chris Curtis. He did not do either of those things, but his striking looked really good in the Soriano fight. Was able to pull off the upset there, just outstriking Soriano for 3 rounds. So I thought that was good. But his bread and butter is his ground game. I think people might have forgot a little bit. Like, this guy's ground game is no joke. He went out there and he out-grappled Breeze, who is a black belt, was able to reverse him and get on top and then pound him out. And then he was able to out-grapple Kevin Holland, was able to actually submit Kevin Holland in the second round, which is actually very impressive to me, because Kevin Holland is a guy that, first of all, Kevin Holland's a black belt. And then if we remember, Kevin Holland is a guy that was going like 5 rounds with Derek Brunson on top of him. Kevin Holland was going like 5 rounds with Vettori on top of him, but Brendan Allen finished Kevin Holland in the second round, reversed him multiple times, took him down a couple times as well. Brendan Allen's ground game is no joke. Submitted Carl Roberson in the very first round as well. He submitted Aaron Jeffrey on the Contender Series. Like, his ground game is really good. Out-grappled Kyle Dawkins, reversed him like 3 or 4 times in that fight. So I feel like Malkoun's kind of screwed here, man. I feel like on the feet, it's Brendan Allen all day. And then I feel like on the mat, if Malkoun takes down Brendan Allen, I see Allen sweeping him, getting on top, and finishing this guy. I know Malkoun's had a lot of success against Abdulrazak Al-Hassan and AJ Dobson, but Brendan Allen's ground game is 20 times better than both those guys. So I think Allen runs through Malkoun here. I see a lot of people, with some love on Malkoun here as a dog, but the line is just not reflecting that. There's money pouring in on Brendan Allen. He was like minus 200 early in the week. He's approaching like minus 300. So, but I think Allen smashes here. I think he can TKO him or submit him here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. Both of these guys are young. Both of them only 26 years old. So they've got, really bright futures. But shit, man, Brendan Allen, 23 fights at the age of 26, 9 of them at the UFC level, 7-2 record in the UFC. Dude, he's going to kill Jacob Malkoun. I hate this matchup for Jacob Malkoun. Malkoun looks great against somebody with a trash ground game and no takedown defense. Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, AJ Dobson. But Brendan Allen is very, very comfortable on the ground. And Brendan Allen's biggest weakness is his fight IQ. But the reason his fight IQ is piss poor is because he's unable to realize when he has a grappling advantage. So he will stay standing in fights that he shouldn't stay standing in. Chris Curtis, even the Punahele Soriano fight, he could have made that easier if he chose to wrestle, but he still outstruck Punahele Soriano. Brendan Allen is the way, way, way better striker here. He is the way, way, way better submission grappler here. He's fought the way better brand of competition, beaten the way better brand of competition. He's way more experienced. He's the way better finisher. And he's actually more durable, as Malkoun got melted by the only wrestler he's ever faced in his life, and that's Phil Hawes. That took about 10 seconds for that fight to end. If Malkoun doesn't have a grappling advantage, I don't think he's even close to being UFC level. His striking is not UFC level. Brendan Allen is going to win every minute on the feet. And I think if Malkoun tries to take down Brendan Allen, he's just going to be in Brendan Allen's world. And I think, if Malkoun does take him down, I think Brendan Allen's going to lock up a heel hook and finish the fight. So hate this matchup for Jacob Malkoun. Malkoun's an excellent wrestler, an excellent minute winner on the ground. And when his opponent has no takedown defense and a trash ground game, he's a great fighter to back. Brendan Allen is just a horrible matchup for him. Brendan Allen already over there in Thailand. He's been there for a while. So, this is Brendan Allen all day for me. I would be shocked if Malkoun was able to go out there, take this dude down, and win a ton of minutes on the ground and stay safe and get a decision here.
Yeah, I mean, that's his game plan, doing that for 15 minutes. But like you said, this is not Abdul Razak Al Hassan, who has 4 minutes of cardio and no takedown defense. This is a legit BJJ black belt. Like, Brendan Allen has submitted multiple black belts in his career. This guy's no joke. I like Allen as well quite a bit. Like you said, he's been over there. It looks like he took a picture in Singapore yesterday with a couple other guys. Manel Kape was in there. He's been there. So I think he'll be okay. Getting over there. He's not like he's getting over there on like Wednesday. So I'm not overly concerned about that. But we take a look at the odds here, and Brendan Allen opened up as a minus 190 favorite. He's currently minus 163. Jacob Malkoun opened up plus 165. He's currently plus 223. I wish I would have looked into this one earlier. They opened up around minus 196 on FanDuel. He's sitting around minus 200 and just been steamed. And I think that line just continues to get wider. The fight goes decision, plus 180. The fight doesn't go decision is minus 240. The over sits at 2.5. The over 2.5 is plus 130. The under 1.5 is minus 160. They're kind of all over it. The over seems to be a really popular play this week. I think it's because Malkoun did go over his last two fights, but I think Allen finishes them probably early. I'm going to take a look at Allen inside the distance. This is a line that I don't have access to, but it is on 5 Dimes and Betway. But Allen inside the distance plus 105 is something I really like rather than laying minus 250 on him. Allen is a finisher. You want to touch on Allen's finish stats a little bit, but I do know that Malkoun has been finishing his only loss.
Yeah, so I mean, at the UFC level, Brendan Allen has finished 5 of his 7 wins, and he's been finished in both of his losses. So 7 of Brendan Allen's 9 UFC fights have finished inside the distance, but overall for Allen, 15 of 18 wins inside the distance and 3 of 5 losses. So 78.3% of Brendan Allen's 23 fights as a pro finished inside the distance, while Malkoun only has 7 professional fights, and 3 of them are at the UFC level. He was finished by Phil Hawes right away. And just as an example, that's what happened when Malkoun's opponent had a ground game. And I know Phil Hawes has power, but the reason that, Malkoun didn't take a forward step in that entire fight was because he was facing a wrestler that he wasn't going to be able to take down. He was left with only his striking, and that's a fucking problem. At this level for him, it's going to be a problem. I mean, if Brendan Allen can win a striking match against a guy like Punahele Soriano, who's got ridiculous knockout power in that left hand of his, he's going to melt Malkoun.
Absolutely. Like, I feel like Malkoun's screwed. Like, is he going to go out there and try to strike with Allen? I think he gets knocked out. He's going to try to grapple Allen. I think he gets subbed. So, I really like Allen. I really like the plus money on inside the distance, but I'm I'm hoping that's still there once, books I have access to open it up. Jason saying, does he still have the mullet? Unfortunately, he does not. Looks like he does have some long hair. Curious to see. He's probably going to braid it. So we'll have to see his haircut come fight time. But yeah, I think Allen does get it done here.
Yeah, the low fight IQ mullets of Brendan Allen and Jimmy Crute, my friend. I mean, it's just, I think it's a bad idea to go with the mullet from here on out. It almost lowers your fight IQ by 30 points, and that's a good way to wind up getting finished in there.
Yeah, so maybe it is a good thing he does not have that mullet.
Agreed.
All right, so we are going to move on to the main card. I think this is going to kick off the main card, at least as of now. We have Jack Della Maddalena going against Ramazan Emeev. We have Jack Della Maddalena, who is 25 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach. Ramazan Emeev, 35 years old, 5'10", with a 76-inch reach. I'm actually really excited to watch this matchup. I'm really excited to see the step up in competition here from Jack Della Maddalena, going from Pete Rodriguez to Ramazan Emeev. It's a big step up, but I'm looking forward to it. So Maddalena, 10 years younger, Maddalena with a 1-inch height advantage, and then it's going to be Emeev with a 3-inch reach advantage as well. Maddalena, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He came in against Pete Rodriguez. I want to say Pete came in on short notice, and then he ended up knocking him out in the very first round. And then he went to a decision in his Contender Series fight, won that against Andalusa, who has also just made his debut in the UFC. Good fighter there, and a really good win. And the first time he did go to decision, and he won it and looked good. Ramazan Emeev, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Stefan Sekulic, a decision loss to Anthony Rocca Martin, a decision win against Nicholas Stolze, a decision win against David Zawada, and then a decision loss to Danny Roberts his last time out. But, me and a lot of other people thought that he did probably deserve the win there. But, yeah, this is a very interesting matchup. I went through and watched as much tape as I could on Jack Della Maddalena. Of course, what you're going to look for is, the takedown defense. He's going to have to absolutely stuff takedowns in this fight. That's Ramazan Emeev's game. Ramazan Emeev has actually went for 55 takedowns, which is nuts, in only 7 fights. So you best believe Maddalena's takedown defense is going to be tested. He did stuff a takedown or 2 on the Contender Series. He did get taken down once, was able to get right back up. There was a nice scramble on the Contender Series as well. It looked good there. And there was a couple times outside the UFC where he was taken down here or there, but he's getting up each and every time. So I guess I need to see a little bit more out of the takedown defense of Maddalena. But, I mean, it's simple as this. Like, if Maddalena can keep this on the feet, it's going to be him all day. His striking's no joke. His combinations are very good. This guy has very sneaky power. Like, it doesn't look like he's hitting hard, but he's doing damage to guys' faces. He's busting them up. And when he lands, he's putting guys down as well. Seems like a really well-rounded fighter, but Ramazan Emeev, he's one of those guys who goes out there and wins minutes. He's 20-5 for a reason. He's fought some good competition. I feel like this is a very, very good task for Maddalena here to go out there and maybe make a name for himself here. Because Pete Rodriguez, that doesn't really impress me, but a win over Ramazan Emeev would absolutely impress me. So Weezy, what do you think about this one here?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because when I first saw this fight, I'm like, oh, man, they're giving him Emeev. It's a big step up. Emeev is, a good wrestler, a well-rounded Dagestani fighter, and that's a really tough matchup. But then, now we can look back with hindsight and you see like the last 3 wins, Stefan Sekulic, Nicholas Stolze. Boy, Stolze looked as good as he ever looked in the UFC against Ramazan Emeev. And the other 2 performances, not good. And then David Zawada, by split decision, he wins that one. And then the Danny Roberts fight, he lost it. I thought maybe he won that one, but it was a close fight. And then he lost to Anthony Rocco Martin. But, I mean, you're going to lose to Anthony Rocco Martin. That dude walks through casinos in Vegas shirtless, takes pisses on the floor, and then knocks out the security guard. So, yeah, you're going to fucking lose to Anthony Rocco Martin. That dude's a G. But Maddalena, we don't really know about the ground game here, and that's going to get tested in this particular matchup because Ramazan is not nearly as good of a striker as Maddalena, and he's not the kind of guy that wants to fight his opponent's fight. So we're going to see. We're going to find out what Della Maddalena's takedown defense looks like, what his get-up game looks like, what his cage wrestling looks like, and the clinch control looks like, because a lot of the fight is going to take place in those spots. Ramazan is taking more than a third of his UFC experience, which is 105 minutes, is taking place in control time positions for or against. and he's winning about 75% of those control time positions on the aggregate. So, like you mentioned, 55 takedown attempts in 7 fights, 2.29 takedowns per 15 minutes, 27% control time for, 7% control time against. So that's going to be the battle here, because you look at somebody like Ameev throwing 5.5 significant strikes per minute. His opponents are throwing 6. And then you look at Maddalena throwing 17.13 significant strike attempts per minute. His opponent's throwing 14.12. Both of these guys striking defense sitting right around 65%. It's going to be a great fight. And Jack Della Maddalena taking that next step up the ladder here, but he's 10 years younger. He's an inch taller. And he's the better finisher here. 91% finish rate in 11 pro wins, and he's been finished in both of his losses. So Maddalena, pretty much a killer be killed fighter. The only fight he's ever seen the scorecards in was the Angalusa fight, and that one there were some opportunities to finish there for and against. So it's interesting on the time props here, because you got a killer be killed fighter in Maddalena, and then you got a decisionator in Ramazan Ameev, who's only finished 10 of his 20 wins inside the distance, but none of his 5 wins. So he's probably finishing cans. And then when he loses at the UFC level, he's not even getting finished here either. So it's hard to pick a time prop. It's actually even harder to pick a side here, because, this is Ameev is going to fight Ameev's fight, and we don't really know how Maddalena is going to hold up under that pressure, under that constant grappling, and it's going to be something I'm going to have to wait to see. And I don't think I want my money anywhere near this one right now.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting way to play that, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, Ameev, if he goes for takedowns and he gets them and he doesn't do anything with them, like we've seen the judges as of late, like they're not favoring the grappling, they're not favoring the cage control. If you're taking somebody down and not doing anything with it, they're going to favor the guy that's doing the damage. And I feel like, when they are on the feet for a certain amount of time, it's going to be Jack Della Maddalena really doing a ton of damage to Ameev. So I guess that's another way to look at it. But just too many question marks for me. I need to see more out of Maddalena's takedown defense. I went and watched a decent amount of fights. I just did not see enough footage. Like, he got taken down here or there, so he can't be taken down. His get-up game looks good, but this is Ramazan Ameev. This is going to be the best wrestler he's fought yet. So, I can't really get there. I saw him at plus money like 2 weeks ago. I had some interest there. I wish I would have kind of looked into it. Now money's pouring out on him. It's now Jack Della Maddalena opening up plus 130. He's now plus 145. And then Ramazan Ameev opened up minus 150, currently plus 125. I think it's one of those cases where there is some hype on Maddalena. Had a really good knockout in his debut. And I think people are really low on Ameev in general, because he's kind of a boring fighter. And then on top of that, just coming off a loss to Danny Roberts, I think people are really low on Ameev. But this is a very close fight regardless. The fight goes to decision minus 170. The fight doesn't go to decision plus 140. How I'm going to play this is going to be potentially the scorecards equals no action for Jack Della Maddalena. This is a guy that isn't absolutely a finisher. I think if he wins, could be a decision, but I think it very well could be a finish. Ameev has been knocked out before. And then I think that's about all I'm looking at. Just that scorecards equals no action for Jack Della Maddalena instead of landing the minus 145. I'm not sure what they're going to get it out yet, but I think that's how I'm going to look at it. Maddalena inside the distance plus 315. Ameev by decision plus 185. Is there anything sticking out to you and any thoughts on that line, Weezy?
Yeah, Ameev by decision is how I would play it, and I think if it does go the full 15, that maybe Ameev, especially at an underdog, at a decision-only prop that you could get for plus money wouldn't be a bad way to play it either, because, you figure if it does go the full 15 minutes, probably means Ramazan had some success in the grappling exchanges in a couple of the rounds. So I think that's the interesting way to play it. Maybe the finish-only, the decision-only props for this fight, because you got a killer be killed fighter and you got a decisionator on the other side. And if you try to pick the time props there, usually the better value is in just picking the inside the distance prop for the finisher and picking the decision prop for the decisionator. It just makes it easier instead of picking time props in these kind of fights.
Yeah, and Glimbot saying these are not U.S. judges. Actually heard Sal D'Amato's taking the trip over. Could you imagine?
Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm just kidding.
You're trying to piss me off now. Okay. Man, oh, man.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
That 29-27 scorecard in the De Silva fight was an absolute robbery.
Man,
De Silva controls almost 2 minutes of that third round, and the distance striking numbers are identical. How the fuck do you give Selecki round 3? That fight actually should have been a draw. It should have been a draw if Sal D'Amato had a an IQ above room temperature. He would have figured that out, that Silva had that third round, and that would have wound up being a draw. Wild fight. A great fight, by the way.
I just scared everybody. Sal D'Amato, that is in everybody's nightmares, including mine. Like, it's terrifying. Like, how do you score that third round for Joe Selecki flopping to his back, losing a lot of the striking exchanges, getting hit hard, and of course getting controlled. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's been getting crazy with Sal D'Amato, but yeah. So no U.S. judges, hopefully not, and hopefully there is some good judging, because a lot of people look like they're getting pretty upset about it, and rightfully so. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have Rogério Bontorin going against Manel Kape. First, I'll say, didn't Manel Kape like get popped for something? Was that like not true,
dude?
I
don't know, man. You know what? I really don't know, so I'm not going to comment on it. But I know that there's been some shit going on with this dude, and it's not, it was before the UFC too.
Yeah, like I swear I saw an article that Manel Kape like popped for something. Maybe it was fake news, but I guess he's fighting here against Rogério Bontorin. So Kape, he's 28 years old. He is 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Bontorin, he's 30 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Top 2 years younger, and it's going to be Kape with a 1-inch reach advantage. Rogério Bontorin, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He had that knockout win against Rallian Pai with a cut stoppage, the decision loss against Ray Borg, a knockout loss against Kai Kara France, a decision win against Matt Schnell, and then a decision loss to Brandon Royval while taking him down 8 times in that fight. Manel Kape is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Alexander Pantoja, lost by decision against Mateus Nicolau, knocked out Ode Osborne, and knocked out Zhalgas Sumagulov. So, yeah, we have a big favorite here in Manel Kape, and yeah, we have a wrestler versus a striker here. Bontorin's going to want to get the fight down to the mat. I'll tell you right now, like on the feet, it's not even going to be close for a lot of reasons. Bontorin, we think of Manel Kape as somebody that's very low volume. Bontorin is very, very low volume, even more low volume than Manel Kape. Manel Kape is going to have a significant speed advantage. Bontorin hits really hard, but Kape's probably going to have a power advantage as well on the feet. For me, it's just Kape all day, especially if he let his hands go as much as he did in his last fight against Zhalgas Sumagulov. When he lets his hands go, he's very, very dangerous and very, very good. Rogério Bontorin, good wrestler. I heard they were talking like he works on his farm in Brazil, so he has that farm strength. And yeah, he had 8 takedowns in his last fight against Brandon Royval and lost the fight, which is very interesting. For Bontorin to win, he's going to need to get the fight down to the mat. And honestly, I faded Manel Kape in his first 2 fights against Alexander Pantoja and Mateus Nicolau. I faded him because I saw outside the UFC he was taken down. I have seen him controlled, and I think he has improved a lot of that part of his game. But the reason I bet Pantoja and Nicolau were for those reasons. Pantoja, I think, went for 1 takedown. It got stuffed. And Nicolau actually was able to take down Kape in the first round, I believe, control him for a little bit. But as the fight went on, Kape's takedown defense looked really good, looked much improved. His ground game, I believe, is either a brown belt or a black belt at this point. So he has improved that aspect of his game. Yeah, I think Manel Kape's probably the more well-rounded fighter here. I think Bontorin, for him to have to win, he's going to have to wrestle. He's going to have to do it for 15 minutes. He's going to have to take down Kape and hold him down. And I just think as the fight goes on, Bontorin probably slows down, and Manel Kape does the opposite. As the fight goes on, Manel Kape grows into the fight. He gets better and better, and I see Bontorin slowing down. Kape's not much of a decision guy, but I'm kind of leaning decision here. I guess he can knock him out at any point in this fight, but Bontorin does have a solid chin. But yeah, I like Kape to win here, but I'm not running to the window to lay the price tag on him. Weezy, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, it's a very interesting fight. It's going to be a real banger. Can't wait for this one. Yeah, and they're similar size. They're similar in experience. They're both amazing finishers. Manel Kape, 16 out of 17 wins inside the distance. Bontorin, 14 out of 17 wins inside the distance. Bontorin's been finished once at the UFC level. Kape has never been finished at the UFC level, and Bontorin's been finished in 2 of 4 pro losses. Kape, 2 of 6. So 4 of their 10 combined losses coming inside the distance. And yeah, you mentioned it, Kape, low volume, but Bontorin, very low volume, it's just, but it's definitely Kape. He can be low volume because he doesn't necessarily need to win minutes on the feet because he's so explosive, because it only takes 1. And Kape has done a good job of keeping his fight standing so far. about 89% of his 38 minutes in the UFC cage has been at striking distance. And I think that's where he wants to fight. He's gotten a couple of takedowns, but he didn't try to get any control time from them. It was just to try to, maybe win a minute here or there. But Bontorin's fights are taking place in control time positions about 45% of the time at the UFC level. So you got to believe that Bontorin's probably, while he is explosive and he's a good striker and he can win minutes there, you would expect that if he the game plan for Bontorin would be to grapple. And these guys are both fighting good UFC fighters. I would say the wins for Bontorin are better. The losses for Kape are better. I'm going to be the guy that never lays juice on Manel Kape, because if I lose that bet, I'll put my fist through the wall. He's just a maddening fighter. He doesn't seem to understand that. Well, why would you understand that minute winning is important when you only have one decision win out of 17 in your career? When you're finishing at over a 94% rate, it's easy to think that you can just get that moment win whenever you need it over the 15-minute period. And then sometimes time runs out and you say, oh, wow, I lost the fight. And Bontorin is the kind of guy who's going to probably just try to push that grappling pace. And I think that he could do that successfully against Kape. But I'm not laying juice on Manel Kape ever. Oh, God, this is a hard fight to call, dude. This might be another one I'm just staying away from.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Manel Kape opened up minus 220, currently minus 220. Bontorin opened up plus 185. He's currently plus 185. Because I think Bontorin has a path to victory. It's just can he consistently wrestle and take down and hold down Manel Kape for 15 minutes? I don't really think so. Yeah. But even like the time props, I'm not excited about. The over 2.5 plus 110, the under 2.5 minus 140. The fight goes decision plus 150. The fight doesn't go decision minus 180. Yeah, just nothing really sticking out. Like Kape inside the distance plus 125. Yeah, I don't like anything, but I'm gonna take Kape as far as a pick goes. Anything sticking out in terms of the money line or props or anything like that?
Both of these guys finishing for and against at a really high rate, right? So 34 out of Bontorin and Kape's 45 combined pro fights have finished inside the distance. That's 75.6%, Brady. The fight doesn't go to decision line, sitting at 64%. So there's about 10% worth of value in terms of over the implied probability of the line when you look at the combined finish rates. But the problem is that fight doesn't go to decision happens about 39% of the time. So when you're paying minus 180 for fight doesn't go for a flyweight fight, you're basically paying about 25% more than what the long-term benchmark of 125-pound 3-round fights have been finishing at. So, yeah, this is going to be a great fight. So it'll be the kind of one where if nothing sticks out, I'll just watch it with no money on it.
Yeah, for sure.
And one more thing, Brady, you were right. He tested positive, Manel Kape, in Las Vegas for a Turinabol metabolite, but evidently, when you test positive for something in Vegas, you just get banned in Vegas. So he just went to fucking Singapore.
Makes sense to me.
Why not? Hey, you got to make money, right? So if they'll let you fight legally over there, that's what you do. And then he could take all the Turinabol metabolites he wants. But he probably isn't going to make weight. He's probably going to do something fucking stupid too, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, don't really want to lay minus 220 on Manel Kape. I'm right there with you, but I will pick him to win. All right, next we have the rematch that everybody's been looking forward to, honestly. Zhang Weili going against Joanna. We have Zhang Weili, who is 32 years old, 5'4", with a 63-inch reach. Joanna, she is 32 years old, 5'6", with a 65-inch reach. Joanna's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and also a 2-inch reach advantage. So Zhang Weili, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Tecia Torres, a knockout win against Jessica Andrade, decision win against Joanna, 5-round fight, a knockout loss to Rose in the first round, and then a split decision loss to Rose as well. Joanna, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights, decision loss to Rose, decision win against Tecia, decision loss to Valentina, a decision win against Michelle Waterson, and then a decision loss to Zhang Weili. So, Zhang Weili has most definitely been the more active fighter since their last fight. Taking a look at it now, so their last fight was exactly 2 years and 2 months ago. So time really, really does fly. So we have not seen Joanna in a very long time. So, what's she going to look like? All the good stuff, something to definitely monitor. And then I guess something I saw that was weird is, Zhang Weili was training out of Fight Ready in her last fight, but it looks like she's training at a gym in Thailand. I forget what it was called. Something like Bang, like what was it? Bang. Do you remember what it's called?
Mo or something. Yeah,
Like
some
Bang Tao gym. Yeah, Bang Tao Muay Thai and MMA. So she's training there, which is interesting. But yeah, she's not at Fight Ready anymore. So yeah, this is I went back and watched the first fight. It was very close. I personally scored it for Joanna. I'm not sure. It really could have went either way. And I feel like this fight is kind of going to be the same thing. It's probably going to be close. Probably can go either way here. I feel like Zhang Weili probably does try to mix in takedowns, but Joanna does have very good takedown defense. Zhang Weili did not have a ton of success in terms of taking down and holding down Joanna in the first fight. As far as picking a winner, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be very competitive, especially in terms of the numbers. I feel like it probably does go to decision, and I feel like are the judges going to favor the damage that Zhang Weili is going to have on Joanna, or are they going to favor the volume, the movement of Joanna? And also, we are in the big cage as well, which is something to definitely mention because I do think that does favor Joanna, but I don't know. It's a close fight. Should be a really good fight. I wish it was 5 rounds, but we're only getting 3 here, which makes it interesting as well. But Weezy, what do you think about this fight here?
Yeah, I mean, not since Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Felice Herrig have we had such an anticipated rematch here. So this is going to be something that we're all looking forward to. One of the best fights that's ever happened. But yeah, like you said, it's 3 rounds instead of 5. And when you look at the numbers here, my God, they're very, very similar. Joanna, a little bit bigger in the tail of the tape. Weili, a little more experience in terms of fights, but it's Joanna with 140 more minutes in the pro cage, 7 more UFC fights, almost 200 more minutes in the UFC cage. Excuse me. We got Zhang Weili, the much better finisher. An 81% finish rate in 20 wins, while Joanna only a 31% finish rate in 16 wins. Joanna has been finished in 1 of 4 pro losses, and Zhang Weili has been finished in 1 of 3 pro losses. Both of these ladies very durable. Only 2 of 7 combined losses coming inside the distance. So when we look at the striking numbers, you see how awesome of a minute winner Joanna is on the feet. 6.3 significant strikes landed per minute. Only 3.08 absorbed. So more than a 2-to-1 significant strike ratio for landed to absorbed. And almost a 2-to-1 significant strike ratio in terms of how much she throws in comparison to her opponents. Joanna is throwing 13.1 significant strike attempts per minute, and it's 8.61 that her opponents are throwing. So volume advantage, striking advantage, accuracy advantage, all for Joanna. But Zhang's numbers are great too. She lands 5.53, only absorbs 4.12. And she's throwing about 3.5 more significant strike attempts per minute than her opponents are, but just not nearly as defensively responsible as Joanna. 52.5% striking defense for Zhang, 64% striking defense for Joanna. Now, Joanna is used to seeing grappling, coming her way. Joanna in 14 UFC fights has only attempted 8 takedowns, but she's had 130 attempted against her. So that is over 16 takedown attempts that her opponents attempt for every one that Joanna is attempting. Over 16-1. So Joanna is controlling her opponent 7.72% of the time and only being controlled 20.74% of the time. So she's been very efficient in keeping the fight where she wants it, which is on the feet at striking range. Zhang attempting 1.75 takedowns per 15 minutes, just under 20% control time for. So Zhang not really a control time master. She was able to get some takedowns in her last couple of fights and won some minutes against Rose in the grappling exchanges. when she was training at Fight Ready, that was, really going to help her cage wrestling and freestyle wrestling. But she's not training there for this particular fight. So I don't know how committed we're going to see Zhang to the grappling in this fight. And I don't even know that it's a good idea that she is committed to the grappling here, because we just don't see people having success against Joanna trying to grapple her. It's not how she's really losing fights. So, when we look at the strength of schedule numbers, they're very, very similar. It's just a slight edge for Zhang Weili, but they're both losing to, beating, and facing off against really experienced, really good win-loss ratio competition. So everything has this razor close. I think it goes to decision. I think it could even be another split decision. It's very hard to pick a side. Fight goes to decision, over 2.5. Feel really good. The problem is, Brady, we haven't seen Joanna for over 2 years. It's hard to know, where her head is at, where her commitment to the sport is at this point, because 2 years off is an awfully long time. And if I'm not mistaken, there haven't been any canceled fights, which just means that she's just taking time off. Yeah. She's just not fighting.
Yeah, that 2 years is a lot. 2 years and 2 months. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a very, very, very close fight. I think it goes to decision. As far as like the money line, doesn't make much sense to me. Zhang Weili opened at -150. She's currently -170. Joanna opened up +130. She's currently +145. This fight's razor close. I feel like it probably should just be a pick'em here. So if I'm betting it, it's probably Joanna. But the 2-year layoff, I think the power of Weili in terms of the optics is going to favor her. It should be very, very close, but I'm leaning Zhang Weili, but I'm not running to bet her at -170. I don't think she's going to look -170 in this fight. I don't think she's going to have success in terms of taking down and holding down Joanna. I think it's going to be a very close fight, like the first one was. So I'm going to pick Zhang Weili to win, just based off of power, based off of damage. I think Joanna's going to wear it, not as bad as last time, but I think she will be wearing it on her face. But it's going to be so close. I think the fight goes -205. Not terrible. The fight doesn't go +165. The over 2.5 is now -245. The under 2.5 +195. And then I'm also going to be taking a look at that split decision prop as well. I know, shout to Tim. I know Tim loves those splits. I think I'll be looking at that as well, because I see it going to decision. I see it being close. So I think split is written all over this fight, Weezy. So anything sticking out in terms of the money line or anything?
Yeah, I kind of just like Weili, but it's more because of narrative things, and I try not to bet on narratives. And the narrative for me is over 2 years away from the cage from Joanna. Don't know where her head is at. People are talking about the plastic surgery, about she's making some money doing some other things. She's a businesswoman, and the fight game is the one where you need to be 100% in. Otherwise, you're just not going to survive at this level. So I'm leaning Weili here. I think she gets this done, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the old Joanna back, the old Joanna champion that's going to go in there and win minutes on the feet and make it, a very gritty war. So I'm looking forward to this fight, but I'm thinking Weili Zhang gets the job done.
Yep, I'm right there with you, but I'm not running to the window to lay the price tag on her at -170. It should be very close. But yeah, let's move on to the co-main event. We have Valentina Shevchenko going against Taila Santos. Honestly, if you told me 2 years ago that this is a matchup, I would have called you crazy, but this is a matchup. We have Shevchenko, who is 34 years old. She's 5'5" with a 66-inch reach. Taila Santos, 28 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Shevchenko, 6 years older, and it's going to be Santos with a 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. So Shevchenko, 5-0 in her last 5 fights, decision win against Liz Carmouche, knockout win against Caitlin Chukagian, decision win against Jennifer Maia, a knockout win against Jessica Andrade, and then a knockout win against Lauren Murphy her last time out. Taila Santos, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Morella Barella, split decision loss. Molly McCann, decision win. Jillian Robertson, decision win. Roxanne Modafferi, decision win. And then Joanne Calderwood, submission win. So honestly, I've been a Taila Santos truther. I have been on the Taila Santos train the last couple fights. I had a big bet on her against Joanne Calderwood. I had a big bet on her against Roxanne Modafferi. I believe I had a bet on her against Jillian Robertson. I've been all over Taila Santos, but this is the fight where I'm just hopping off the train. she's a big dog for a reason. And I just feel like Shevchenko has her covered everywhere. I mean, Taila Santos, yes, she's younger, she's bigger, but where is she going to beat Valentina? On the feet, it's going to be Valentina all day. Is she going to take down Valentina and be able to control her? I don't really think so. It's just, you take a look at Santos, just she's looked so dominant. She looked dominant against Joanne Calderwood or Joanne Wood, who, looks washed, looks done. Looked good against Roxanne Modafferi, who's retired. She was like 40 at the time. She looked good against Jillian Robertson, who's content to lay on her back. She looked good against Molly McCann. And then she lost to Mara Marella Borello. Like, this is a massive step up in competition, going from Joanne Calderwood to Valentina Shevchenko, one of the best, if not the best, women's fighter in history. So, just a big, big step in competition. Like, what is Taila Santos' best win? Her best win is probably Joanne, I guess. Like, that's not saying a ton there. I think Valentina rolls here. I know the over is a very popular play this week, but I don't know. Valentina, she's dangerous. She's going out there and, Katlyn Chukagian's not easy to finish. She finished her at the head kick. Jessica Andrade is not easy to finish. She made Andrade look like a bum that night. Yeah. I remember Andrade was a very popular dog that night, kind of around the same price tag as Santos here. And Shevchenko just ran through Andrade, 7 or 8 takedowns within, a round and a half. Ended up just finishing Jessica Andrade and then just finishing a very tough Lauren Murphy. I think Shevchenko finishes Taila Santos here. I just don't really see where Santos poses many problems. I don't know. Not really a hot take, but, I think Shevchenko rolls here. Weezy, any hot takes here?
No, I mean, there's some, I don't know if they're hot takes. It's just this division is really weird. That you can lose to a 2-5 Mara Romero Borello, then rip off a 4-fight win streak, 3 of them by decision, mind you, against Molly McCann, Jillian Robertson, Roxanne Modafferi, and then Joanne Calderwood. I mean, Calderwood and Modafferi are horrible.
Yeah.
And then you're getting a title shot. And look, let's just, this is kind of funny. Let's look at Valentina Shevchenko's recent wins. You could say that she's not beating anybody. Is a Lauren Murphy win a big deal? Is a Jennifer Maia win a big deal? Jennifer Maia has a losing record in the UFC, and she got a fucking title shot. Katlyn Chukagian, okay, good point fighter. Liz Carmouche, Jessica I, 5-9 in the UFC, and she got a title shot. So before we start saying that Shevchenko is the best fighter on the planet, let's just admit to ourselves that she's been crushing cans, that you can be a can and get a title shot in this division. So where are we with this fight? Because if you actually look at the numbers, right? Shevchenko lands 3.36, absorbs 2. Well, Taila Santos lands 3.71, absorbs 2.23. Both these ladies striking defense sitting at 64%. Both these ladies have never been knocked down in the UFC. Valentina Shevchenko has 1 knockdown in 13 UFC fights. Taila Santos has 3 knockdowns in 6 UFC fights. Taila Santos is getting her takedowns at an 86.67% clip. Valentina Shevchenko getting hers at a 64% clip. Valentina defending takedowns at a 77% clip. Taila Santos defending takedowns at an 89% clip. Let me just remind you, for everybody who says that Taila Santos' stats are coming against cans, that Valentina Shevchenko's stats are coming against cans at 125 pounds. So that's the story that I have to tell, That's the story that are kind of lost in the stats of this fight, is that Valentina is the best 125-pounder on the planet by a mile right now. But she's so much better than these other women that she's beating. And she made it look easy against Andrade and Chukagian. So obviously that's very impressive. Neither one of those ladies has fought Taila Santos yet. So we don't know how Taila would have fared against them. It would have been a great test to give Taila Santos one of those two ladies to see if she deserves this shot. But the division is so top heavy that, you know, you can put together wins against cans like Calderwood and Modafferi and then be called for a title shot. It's very odd, isn't it, Brady?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're missing a little bit of like Valentina has beaten Joanna.
Yeah, but Joanna's a 115er.
True. What about Juliana Pena?
Juliana Pena is up at 135. Remember that, and the Nunez losses are at 135. So I'm talking about Valentina at 125.
Okay, that makes sense.
In this 125, I'm just saying it's a weird division. I'm not saying Valentina isn't by far the best. I'm not saying I'm not favoring her in this fight. I'm just trying to give us an alternative to what we're going to hear for the rest of this week, which is Valentina is the best fighter on planet Earth. Nobody's going to beat her. Well, yeah, somebody is going to beat her eventually. I don't know when it's going to happen, but this is a very weird division. And don't throw, Taila Santos out the window early. She's a very, very good, very well-rounded fighter, and she's dominated her opponents in similar ways that Valentina has dominated her opponents. But that all being said, it's hard to say that Taila Santos is going to win this fight.
Yeah, I don't know how she's going to win this fight, honestly. I guess we could talk about the Mara Borella fight a little bit. I always talk about that fight not being too important. It was her debut. She said she had some jitters, but Borella was able to take her down a couple times, control her. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if she was to win, like I know maybe Valentina, I don't know. How do you picture and imagine a Taila Santos 5-round win against Valentina?
Oh,
like
I mean, if she winds up being the better wrestler, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my concern with I mean, maybe early on, but the cardio of Sant, like, could she do it for 5 rounds is my concern.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, that's why this is just such a strange division. Shevchenko just reigns so supreme at 125. There's just not women in that weight class right now that are on her level, and we've got to give the other ones a little more time, because if Taila loses this one, they're just going to throw Manon in front of her, and I don't know if Manon is ready, but I think that Manon could win striking exchanges against Valentina, but Valentina probably takes down Manon, so I see why Santos is getting this shot. I don't know if anybody else deserves it.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But other than that, man, it's probably just Valentina all day, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's interesting. Like, Santos is getting a lot of love. Like, you take a look at the last 7 fights for Valentina Shevchenko. So she ended up closing minus 950 against Priscilla Ketchup-Beating. She closed minus 1100 against Jessica Ai, minus 1100 against Liz Carmouche, minus 1300 against Jennifer Maia, minus 1250 against Lauren Murphy. And she's sitting here at only minus 600 against Taila Santos, which is interesting. So Taila Santos is getting some respect here for sure. Looks like some money is coming in on Santos as we speak as well. So, I think it's Valentina here, though. Obviously, you can't lay the minus 600. I would not parlay that, nothing like that. I'm going to be looking at it. I'm going to be looking at the Valentina to win inside the distance. It's actually plus money. Looks like plus 150. I think she could finish Santos early. I think she could break her down, finish her late. Valentina has finished some pretty solid fighters like Jessica Andrade. Like I said, a very tough Lauren Murphy. She's finished a very tough Priscilla Ketchup-Beating as well. Jessica Ai, Caitlin Jukagan as well. So I think she does finish Santos at some point. And rather laying minus 600 on her, I think the plus 150 inside the distance is the way I'm going to look. But yeah, the over-under set at 3.5 rounds, over 3.5 minus 150, under 3.5 plus 120. Santos by KO plus 900, Santos by sub plus 1390, Chef by sub plus 450, Shevchenko by decision plus 105. Is there any props that are sticking out to you?
Oh God, no, not really, man. I might look. Oh God, no. I can't justify betting Santos, and I can't justify betting ever a juiced favorite in a women's fight at minus 600. I'm not making those mistakes anymore, Brady. I'm not doing it. I'm fine with sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, and why not? I mean, there's no point laying minus 600 on Shevchenko. Like, not even parlaying it wouldn't be worthy, right?
I don't think I'd even parlay it. Yeah, at -600, I'm just trying not to bet those fights unless I actually think there's a path to victory for the dog. And yeah, I mean, when you look at the numbers, there are ways that you could say, yeah, Santos maybe wins minutes on the feet. Yeah, maybe Santos and her 89% takedown defense is able to keep the fight on the feet. Hey, how about maybe Santos with her 86% takedown accuracy, which is better than Valentina Shevchenko's 77% takedown defense? Maybe she gets a takedown or two and wins minutes on the ground. I mean, who's trying to take down Valentina, really?
Yeah.
So there are, I mean, if you could look at these numbers, if you're looking at these numbers and you're thinking, I'm betting Valentina, you're really not looking close enough at the numbers. Fucking Taila Santos is dominating 125-pound women, just like Valentina is. But now she takes that step up, and it's not one step. It's like 33 steps. It's like 50 stories to go from the first floor where you're crushing cans like Modafferi and Calderwood, and then you're going up to, it's like you beat some Greek dude with no legs, and now you're squaring off against Zeus. It's a big step up.
Yeah, it really is. I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, we can move on. Valentina should win. She's a big favorite, but I actually see a ton of love on the dog for Taila Santos. So we'll see where that line goes. So money's pouring in on Santos. I want to see where that line goes throughout the week. But we'll move on to the main event. We have probably one of my most, if not my most anticipated fight of the year. We have Glover Teixeira going against Jiri Prochazka. We have Glover Teixeira is 42 years old, 6'2", with a 76-inch reach. Jiri, he is 29 years old, 6'3", with an 80-inch reach. So I guess that the biggest thing here is Jiri is going to be 13 years younger than old man Glover, still getting it done at 42 years old. I think he's about to be 43 as well. Jiri's also going to have a 1-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage as well. Teixeira is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Submission win against Ian Kudalaba, decision win against Nikita Krylov, a knockout win against Anthony Smith, a submission win against Thiago Santos, and a submission win against Jan Blachowicz. Jiri, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, but he is 2-0 in the UFC, made his debut against Volkan Oezdemir, won that fight by knockout, and then knocked out Dominic Reyes as well. So this is a fight where I have a bet on this fight. I put Damon Jackson last week into a parlay with the fight doesn't get the decision. Came out at around -170, so I have 3 units on that. So I'm liking where I'm out there, but I think violence is probably the way to go because honestly, I'm really, really struggling to pick this fight because I think there's so many reasons to pick Glover Teixeira in this fight. I really think there are. I don't like Jiri's striking defense. It's non-existent. He literally blocks punches with his face. Like he absorbs punches with his head and goes like this and eats the punches, and he can do it. He's very durable, but do you really want to do that against guys that hit very hard? And Teixeira, he can crack, but I think Jiri's going to be the clear better striker here. He's very unorthodox. There's nobody out there like Jiri. This guy's very, very unique and wild in his striking. And then I also don't like the takedown defense of Jiri. He got taken down by Dominic Reyes. You go watch fights outside the UFC, he's getting taken down. But, at the same time, Glover Teixeira, he's 43 years old. Glover Teixeira gets hurt in every single fight. I feel like Jiri just probably knocks him out here. But it's an interesting fight. Like if Jiri could absolutely knock him out, but what happens if Glover Teixeira is able to get on top of Jiri? Like Glover Teixeira's ground game is absolutely no joke. What happens if this fight gets extended? What does Jiri's gas tank look like later the fight goes? So I feel like there are a lot of reasons to pick Teixeira. I feel like he's a very live dog, but at the same time, I kind of think he gets knocked out on the very first round. So I'm struggling with this one, Weezy. I am leaning on the Jiri side. I'm leaning for him to get knocked out, but we've seen it time and time again. Like Teixeira goes in there in the first round. He gets clipped bad. He almost gets finished. The ref almost steps in, and then he gets a reversal, gets on top, and then he finishes you. Happened in the Roberson fight, happened in a bunch of fights. Against Thiago Santos, it happened like 2 times, once in the first round, once in the third. So you can never count this guy out. But Jiri's so much younger. He's so dangerous. I think Jiri knocks out Glover early on, but I don't want to completely rule out Glover here. Weezy, what do you think about this main event?
Yeah, Jiri, 13 years younger, an inch taller, a 4-inch reach advantage. And despite the fact that he's that much younger, he only has 8 less fights than Glover Teixeira. 32 professional fights for Jiri Prochazka, 28-3 as a pro with a draw. So just incredible numbers. And I mean, if you were to go into a lab like the $6 million man creators, and create a fighter that is just the most exciting fighter to watch. You would create Jiri Prochazka, a giant man, too big for the weight class that easily makes weight every time somehow. Amazing power, no grappling defense, but the ability to get back up when he gets taken down. And you could hit the dude in the face with a shovel 10 times, and he's going to keep coming forward. He's got an unbelievable chin, an unbelievable ability to be able to absorb punishment. So it just makes it so, I mean, like the most pleasurable thing that a capper can do is go do tape study on Jiri Prochazka. The guy's never been in a boring fight. His fights are all action. Somebody's getting served every single time. They're all finishing inside the distance. Every fight has 7 changes of momentum because Prochazka is so piss poor defensively, but the guy's durability is unbelievable. And if you don't get him out of there after 5 minutes, the next round starts on the feet and he only needs 1 shot. And he's so unorthodox that it's impossible to prepare for this guy. So it's another very difficult fight to call because Prochazka can lose 24 and a half minutes of a fight and then just land 1 big shot and it's over. And it seems like he's got the conditioning to go the full 25. One of the best fights that this dude has been in was the Vadim Nemkov fight over in Rizin, 10-minute first round. And there were so many takedowns, so many changes of position, so many momentum changes in the fight that after the 10 minutes, Vadim Nemkov could not even get up off the floor. They had to call the fight right there. It was a retirement after 10 straight minutes of fighting. Prochazka barely looked tired. So, this guy is just, I think that the UFC is going to have a real treat on their hands if Jiri Prochazka wins this fight and becomes champion. I think he's going to be one of the most unique champions that the UFC has ever seen. But I'm not counting out Glover Teixeira because this guy, when he gets on top of his opponents, is so deadly, so precise, so safe. He's so good at getting you exactly where he needs you to be. And then once you're there, he finishes the fight. Glover Teixeira, a 75% finish rate in the UFC, and that's in 16 wins. 12 of 16 UFC wins inside the distance. 85% finish rate as a pro. 28 of 33 wins inside the distance for Teixeira. 30% by sub, 55% by knockout. So the guy is so well-rounded. His wrestling, 29 takedowns in 21 fights, averaging over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. He gives up as many takedowns as he gets, but he outcontrols his opponents at a 2.5-to-1 ratio. He's a master of winning minutes and winning fights on the ground, and he's durable enough to absorb punishment more than most on the feet, while in a scramble is so precise and so able to get you into a position where he can win the fight. So this is very, very difficult fight to call here. But it's really hard when you watch the tape on Prochazka to envision a scenario where in 25 minutes, Prochazka doesn't land something that changes the trajectory of the fight and winds up getting Glover out of there. Glover's been knocked out in 2 of his 5 UFC losses and in 3 of his 7 pro losses. And I mean, Jiri Prochazka has got 89% of his 28 wins by knockout. So that's 25 wins, by knockout in 32 fights. I've got to lean Prochazka here. But if Glover gets Prochazka's back to the mat with more than 2 minutes to work, I think he's very, very live to win this fight.
Yeah, and I like you said, I don't want to count out Teixeira because I have been counting him out, and it's bit me in the ass. I actually did have a bet on him. He was a dog against Thiago Santos, so he did close at plus 207 against Thiago Santos. He was a big dog there. He was a big dog against Jan Blachowicz at plus 245. Pulled off the upset. He's a pick him against Nikita Krylov. About to pick him against Kudalaba. Like this guy gets slept on a lot. And he ends up going out there and winning, and he's like almost 43. So I don't want to count out Old Man Glover. But as far as a pick goes, I'm picking Jiri. But honestly, I just want to sit back, enjoy some violence, cash my violence bet. I'm not going to bet aside here. You take a look at the line, and yeah, Glover's getting disrespected again. Jiri opened up minus 190. He's now minus 200. Glover opened up plus 165. He's currently plus 170. Yeah, I think Jiri wins, but minus 200, like Glover could absolutely win this fight. So I'm not liking the money line there, but I am liking violence. The fight is a good decision. I did parlay it at minus 450. Best line out there is minus 400. It's going to be juice, but looks like the under 2.5 is minus 170. I think that's very playable. But yeah, I think violence is just the answer here. It's a tough fight to call, but I do lean Jiri myself, Weezy.
Yeah, and the fight doesn't go to decision. If this thing goes the full 5 rounds, man, I might just retire as a capper, because there's nothing in the tape study, in the stat study, that leads me to believe that this striker versus grappler matchup is even going to see the 3rd round.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised to say the least, that's for sure. But it would be an amazing fight if it did. My goodness.
Oh my God. My God. I mean, we might have heart attacks if this thing goes into the 5th round, man. We might not be able to take it. Either that, or it'll be like, Walker versus Santos part 2, where it just it winds up being just the opposite of what everybody expected, and winds up being a boring fight. But no, not with Jiri Prochazka in there.
Yeah.
Not with Old Man Glover in there, pushing 43 years of age. This guy's trying to defend this title once or twice before he retires. And it's a stylistic matchup that Glover can win, man. If he takes down Jiri and starts working that top control, man, it's going to be very difficult for Jiri to get up. And that's the only way that you're beating Jiri Prochazka. You're not knocking this dude out because they don't let you bring a shovel or a gun into the cage. And, and you're not going to get him tired, and you're not going to outpoint him, because eventually this dude's just going to use his strength to get back up, and he's going to knock you out. So, yeah, violence is very, very safe bet for this fight.
Sounds good to me. So, Weezy, we did it. We went through all 12 fights. And yeah, this card is going to be very, very good. Looking forward to it for sure. We'll do a main event deep dive on the MMA Engine YouTube channel tomorrow before the Die Hard MMA podcast, breaking down this fight. We'll talk about it from a betting perspective as well. Hopefully by that time, DraftKings and FanDuel will be getting out some props. We can look into those. But yeah, Weezy, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week in terms of content.
Yeah, for sure. You can find me right here on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stack Diggers, every Wednesday for the DFS show, every Saturday for the Watch Along. You can also find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel, where I do balls deep breakdowns, and where Brady and I do probability every Thursday night, 7:15 Central Time, where we give you a data-driven look at all the fight goes, fight doesn't go, and all the time props on the card. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, where I do balls deep breakdowns of fights, and I also do a full card breakdown every Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time, called Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy. Finish up with a greasy 4-leg parlay, which cashed last week, and with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week every week. Thank each and every one of you guys for spending your Sunday night with us on Pub Sports Radio, and let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 275. This is going to be a great card.
Man, I cannot wait to see who is going to shave some ass, Weezy. I think there's a couple good options on there, honestly. But yeah, guys, I do want to shout out Take No Prisoners 1999. Thanks for the stream, guys. It's cool. You know what? Take No Prisoners, you are cool. Thank you for the no-no, and thank you for hanging out and participating throughout the night. But yeah, guys, you can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram is DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown video should be out tomorrow. Going live with Weezy tomorrow as well on the MMA Engine for the main event deep dive. Like Weezy said, back on Thursday for probability. Back here on Wednesday on Pub Sports for DraftKings content. So lots of stuff going on throughout the week. Make sure you check me out there. Leave a like on your way. I did check the likes, and we smashed the 100 marks. Thank you guys for that. We're at 116. Appreciate that a ton. It's always nice to hit the 100 mark by the time we get out of here. And yeah, if you have any questions, comment below. Me and Weezy are pretty good at getting back to you guys there. And yeah, I think that's about it. Weezy, any final thoughts about this card?
I just think it's great to see a couple of title fights, a pay-per-view, some good name value on this card. The rematch amongst Joanna and Zhang is going to be awesome. Hopefully Kape doesn't test positive for anything before Saturday so that we can watch that fight against Bontorin. That's going to be a good one. Looking forward to this card. Not as many spots sticking out as last week for Stat Diggers, but I don't necessarily mind that because these are some really good high-level fights.
And of course, we get to see Liang Na
Yes.
The very handsome Liang Na as well.
You got that right, man. I can't wait. And I want to see the most handsome fight ever, Niang La against Quihi Yan, because that second round had to be absolutely bonkers because they're both such gassers. To see that one get finished 458 in round 2 with an armbar would have been a treat. Looking to find that online. But, yeah, it's going to be a great card, man. Looking forward to it.
100%, guys. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Best of luck. UFC 275. Let's make some money. We'll talk to you guys very soon. See you.